Joe Rogan Podcast. Check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day. What killed RFK, bud?
His Zionism. You know, if he didn't have that, I think he could be president, but it's...
You mean RFK Jr.?
Yeah.
Oh.
I
was confused.
I was like, what? I meant figuratively.
I was like, how did this have anything to do with the boycott of Starbucks and McDonald's and Sirhan? Like, what? Some rabbit hole shit I didn't know about? Is that possible?
You know, Sirhan, his house was in Pasadena, which was close to where I used to live.
Really?
Yeah, one day my wife was like, yeah, the Sirhan lives over here. I'm like, get out of here. I didn't know.
Have you ever read into the MK Ultra connection between Sirhan, Jack Ruby, and Jolly West?
So, no, I haven't, but I'm working with Kurt Metzger, and he knows all that shit.
he knows too much.
I'm like, well, he could just go on.
You've ruined him. Because I don't think he was aware of so many legitimate, actual conspiracies, meaning like where governments and corporations conspire against the American people, lie, twist facts, distort things. But Kurt is one of those guys that once he finds out something, because he grew up in a cult, right?
Yeah.
So he's in a Jehovah's Witness cult when he was young. Yeah. Sorry, Jehovah's Witnesses. And then becomes a comedian, and he's so averse to bullshit. He's like, oh, no. Because you fucking ruined my childhood. I know what this is. I've seen this before. I've seen this in another form. Mm-hmm. I know what this is.
Yeah, that's his superpower because he's been through it.
You ruined him. His shows, you ruined him. He's so crazy
upset.
now. He's so mad now.
Do you see him get upset on the show? He gets legit angry.
Here it is. Other controversial cases West was assigned to, including evaluating Sirhan, who assassinated Robert F. Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, June 5th, 1968. West claims Sirhan was the subject of psychic driving, a mind-altering technique involving hypnosis or paralytic drugs. Psychiatrists often use barbiturates for this. Settle the fuck down. You used acid. Stop lying. What is this? Oh, maybe possibly barbiturates or something legal. No, they were using acid.
Who's this West guy?
Jolly West was the head of MK Ultra. He was the guy
that
they chronicle extensively in Thomas O'Neill's book Chaos about the Manson case.
Oh, so yeah, my wife is reading that right now.
God damn, that's a good book.
And she has it on audiobook, so I'll walk through the house and I'll hear like, what the
You know how crazy that book is? Tom was Greg Fitzsimmons' roommate in New York. And then also, not roommate, neighbor. He was his neighbor in New York. And then also his neighbor in Venice, California. He moved, so they were near each other. For 20 years, this guy's been working on this. He started working on it as an article, right? So he writes it as an article, but then once he starts getting into the information, it's so extensive, it's so crazy that he can't finish the article. Because the article is just an anniversary of the Manson assassinations, the Manson killings. So then 20 years later, he finally puts out this book, and he's got enough information for another fucking book. And it's wild. It's all a CIA plot. The Manson family Manson was visited in prison by Jolly West. They trained him, allegedly, in hypnosis techniques using LSD, how to mind control people. He would not do the acid, but he would give the acid to the people, which is something also that apparently the MK Ultra people trained him. And he would get them to commit evil acts. And the whole thing was to discredit the anti-war movement. That's the whole thing, was the hippies. So they turned hippies into something fucking terrifying. So hippies used to be like, oh, she's a flower child. Yeah. Oh, they're peace and love. Cute, nice stuff. But then they turned hippies into fucking psychotic murderers who cut babies out of movie stars' bellies and paint on the wall pig, that kind of shit.
Kurt was also telling me about that. That's the perfect way to discredit the anti-war movement.
Yes. Well, that's also why the Psychedelic Act of 1970 was passed.
Oh, really?
Yes, the Psychedelic Act of 1970 was passed to go after the Black Panthers and to go after the civil rights leaders and to go after the anti-war movement. Because those people were all taking drugs. So they're eating mushrooms and trying to come to like some sort of an understanding of our place in the universe. And they said, okay, we're going to take all of these psychedelic compounds that are literally creating a cultural revolution. So you go from the 1950s, you get, I always say music is like the best representation of that, and comedy as well, but really music. If you look at like Buddy Holly, great music, great stuff. And then Jimi Hendrix is 10 years later. What the fuck is that?
Right.
That's like a revolution, like out of nowhere. Something is insanely different. Like it's not even from this earth.
Yeah.
Not even from this earth. That's all psychedelics.
And we've never had a leap like that since.
Nope.
Isn't that weird? Like you can listen to music from the 80s and a lot of it sounds like it could be made today.
It's
right?
Coke music. The 80s, they were all doing Coke. They were watching Miami Vice. They were doing Coke, wearing no socks with loafers.
But remember, whenever I hear a Prince song, I'm like, oh, that could be made today. That could have been from right now.
Yeah, well, Prince was the most versatile, right? Because he could do anything. Like, if you go to his early stuff, it was like this real sweet music about fucking. You know?
Yes, he was all
like
about
Head.
fucking.
You ever heard that song, Head,
Yeah.
from his first album? Or I think his second album? God, he was good. He was so good.
I love that he had that. There was that band, Morris Day and the Time.
Yes.
I like them almost more than Prince. I just like them.
Oh, he's got this one song that's on I think it's on the playlist. I hope it's on the playlist. It's called, if it's not, I'm going to put it on there right now. It's called Cool, because I'm cool.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm down in San Francisco. Dance all night in Rome.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. Morris Day was the shit.
Yeah. Maurice, bring me by. I love that. I thought that Morris Day was going to be bigger than...
I know. Well, I didn't think he was ever going to be bigger than Prince. I think Prince is a legitimate genius.
Oh, yeah, he was.
And he's another guy that we lost because of fucking bullshit, because of fentanyl.
Yeah, you think that's what... Okay.
That's what happened to him. Yeah.
What do you think about... So now people are revisiting the...
God, it wasn't in the playlist. It is now.
Oh, it is?
I had to put it in the Mothership playlist. I'm like, how's that not
He
in
has
there?
a song called Walk Everybody, Walk Your Body.
Yeah.
Everybody walk your body.
Yeah.
I'm about to walk a hole in my Stacy's.
He was just so cool.
And so then I would go out and buy Stacey Adams shoes. I would. And so there was this place... there was a very derogatory... It was Maxwell Street in Chicago. And they used to call it... I can't say it, but because it's anti-Semitic. Mm-hmm. And so we would go down there, and you could walk in. There are all these clothes stores, and you could bargain with them. And I never experienced that before. Like you walk in, and usually the price was the price. You go to the mall, the prices, you can't bargain, but you could bargain. So it was like an exciting thing to do. Me and my brothers would all go down there, and you'd go into all these stores, and you'd like put all these clothes together, like when we'd start bartering. Like, okay, how about this? How about that? It was fun. I miss those days. That's where in the Blues Brothers, remember they go down to get the black guy who's the clarinet player, and you better think. So that whatever that's where that took place.
Oh wow!
And but I think that's all gone now. I think they got rid of that, and they I don't know what they put.
It's probably in Applebee's.
I think the University of Illinois Chicago maybe expanded into there and took it over.
Oh, interesting.
But those were the days. I missed the Morris Day and the Time. I missed those days.
These are the best days.
But then there's
these days right now. These are the best days.
You think?
Yeah, by far. By far.
Well, they are for me.
By far for everybody, because we get all the other stuff from those other eras. We still can listen to that too. We can still watch that too. But we have a bizarre time where the world is waking up, where people are so much more aware of the corruption and the just the way the world works it's more highlighted than it's ever been before. And I think it's more fun. It's like some of the things that are stupid are so stupid. Like when you see Biden, we beat Medicare, and they go, "Thank you, Mr. President,"
you
and they
beat the hell
smash
out of
cut.
it.
Like, how the fuck is that real? How is that real? The guy like locks up like Windows 95, stammers for 15 seconds, and then he says, "We beat Medicare."
I was doing a show the other night at the Hotel Cafe in Hollywood, and I do a joke about Joe Biden, like why don't they get a dog to lead him off stage, and the people in the crowd, like they're all like 20-something Hollywood people, and they go, "Oh." And I was like, what? I go, I have friends like you. I know what that it's.
Listen, they've done a good job. They've done a really good job of pretending that they're compassionate.
Joe Biden. I've always loved Joe. No one's ever fucking loved Joe Biden.
Yeah.
He's always been a joke and a punchline. And this idea that somehow it's Joe Biden's integrity and truth-telling against Donald Trump, he lied. The first time Joe Biden ran for president, he had to drop out because he got exposed for being a pathological liar. He said he graduated at the top of his class. He graduated at the bottom. He said he had 3 majors. He said he was chosen the most outstanding political. No, it was all lies. And then he got caught plagiarizing. Someone else, not only this, their speeches, but like their life story. It was like, who does that? And so he had to, he's been a joke, always was a joke. And this idea, the reason why black and brown I had to, tell this to Cornel West when he came on my show. Hey, the reason why black and brown people are locked up at way higher rates than their population is because of Joe Biden, not because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump actually did the step back, right? Which is probably why he's getting 20% of the black vote right now. All their narratives are falling away. People are waking up, and not only in America, but I do miss a time before cell phones and the internet. It was like more of an innocent time. I do miss that time.
I'm glad we went through it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also.
But I don't miss it.
Okay, but I was just in Europe, right? I went a 11-day tour or whatever, and I didn't know if I was going to have anybody's going to show up. They did, and. It's like the same shit that people they're upset at the media, they're upset at the control, they're upset at the censorship. And I didn't know, like Jeff Bezos, I was in Norway, and they're like, yeah, Jeff Bezos owns freaking media here too. I'm like, what? I didn't know. I'd never thought about like that. Of course they would.
Of course.
And so, and everybody's going through the same shit. London, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, they're all fucking pissed off like I am, and they're like all sick of being lied to, and they're all hate their media, and they all feel controlled.
That's what's good about today, because before the media used to do exactly what they're doing now, but they didn't. It wasn't transparent.
Right.
Nobody knew. Right.
Well, there used to be 50 giant media companies, so there used to be more truth that could get out. But now, because of Bill Clinton and the Telecommunications Act of 1996, we went from 50 giant media companies down to 6, meaning that every TV show, every newspaper, every magazine, every radio show, it's all comes from one of the 6 companies, right? And that's why journalism sucks so much right now, because journalists used to come from blue-collar backgrounds like me, but now they know they all have to work for one of the 6 billionaire-owned companies,
right.
And so the billionaires handpick those people from Ivy League schools now, and they're all going to be class loyal. And so that's why the whole thing is, it's a great time, but also we're pitted against each other now by the media like never before, right? Like no matter what the story is, they have their minions in the press report it in a way that makes you hate your neighbor and blame your neighbor and not the guys doing it, right? Like, so the oligarchy keeps us fighting amongst each other, and that's real. That's not made up. I mean, look at how they lied about the biggest story, the Kyle Rittenhouse story, right? Now, I hated that kid because the corporate media told me he was a white supremacist who didn't live in that community. He traveled across state lines with guns to shoot 3 black people at a Black Lives Matter rally, and I hated him. And then I watched the trial, and it turns out he did live in that community. He was a lifeguard in that community. He was asked to protect a car dealership by immigrants of color because the cops wouldn't. And he didn't travel across state lines with guns, and he didn't shoot 3 black people. He shot 3 white people. And I was like,
I think he only shot 2 guys.
Maybe you're
Wasn't
right.
it?
Maybe. Well,
he killed 1.
He definitely
did he shoot 3?
And then he shot the other guy
through the arm.
Through the arm.
Yeah.
And they're all 3 criminals. That's another part they leave out. They're all
3 criminals, terrible people. This is the thing about riots, right? When riots are too much like a war, like anytime there's a gathering, protests, when people get angry and they're marching, I think that ignites in us the same feelings of war, and people start doing wild, crazy shit. They went after that dude with a skateboard and tried to hit him with a skateboard. He ran away from them before he shot him.
So he shot the first guy who was the pedophile, right? And we know that guy had threatened to.
So he shot and killed 2 men, wounded another man.
So 3.
So he killed 2 and wounded 1.
So the first guy he shot had threatened to kill him all day long, and we know that he attacked him because his fingerprints are on the gun barrel.
It even says it right there in Wikipedia. Stop. Go back.
Yeah, grab the barrel of his rifle. There it is.
But it says, look at this. Race was a major theme in the U.S. media commentary, although Rittenhouse and those he shot were white.
White.
Isn't that wild?
Yes.
Most people didn't know, including people that met Kyle Rittenhouse. Like David Lucas, the stand-up comedian, he knows Kyle Rittenhouse. He brought Kyle Rittenhouse to the mothership. And guys who were there, who met him, the guys you shot were white?
Yeah.
Everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
And then you have to tell them, not only were they white, like these guys are like career criminals. One guy was a pedophile.
The one guy pulled a gun on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the media just fucked that kid, and he won. And he got exonerated, and now... Go ahead.
No, people say to me, they go, Jimmy, why are you defending Kyle Rittenhouse? I go, I'm not defending Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm defending the truth. And why aren't you pissed off that the corporate media lied about a 16-year-old kid to divide the country? Because that's what that was about.
Yeah, and you're just going to polarize that kid even more. I mean, that kid's going to lean so far right now.
Of course.
Of course. They're the only people that stood by him, and everybody else lied about him. The media lied about him. And so many people had this. So there's surface narratives, right? And surface narratives are the best. The media is the best at propagating surface narratives. They're best at headlines, even if they're misleading.
Safe and effective.
Yeah, but these surface narratives are the ones that get into people's heads that are the least informed. And that's the general population.
People still think Russiagate's real.
Oh, yeah.
Look at people like Bill Maher.
Oh, yeah.
That was shocking to me. I'm like, I thought... He just hated Trump, but
he doesn't even know what the WEF is all about.
He didn't even. Did you see Roseanne had to tell him?
Yeah, that's
he didn't even know what MK Ultra was.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And then he got the balls to tell Bill Burr, "This isn't your lane. It's not your lane either, Bill. You don't know fucking anything."
Bro, Bill chewed him up. That was wild.
That was hilarious.
You can't go tat like that with Bill because he does that to himself all day. All day. He's like battling out in his own mind, having arguments. Well, look at you, fucking Bill. Look at you. You fucking stupid sneakers on. You're 55 years old, dressing like a teenager. What the fuck are you doing?
What'd you ever do? Why should people listen to you? You're fucking
pasty retard.
You're not a general. You never did anything.
Exactly. Exactly.
But that's the the biggest shocker to me is like the bubble that people live in, right? And it's like, it's just like with the debate. Like, do you think that the lies that the media has been telling I've been saying Joe Biden's been a demented walking death rattle since 2019. And it's because it's been obvious that he's suffering from something.
Well, there's a decline, right? If you just saw him in 2019, it wouldn't be as obvious. But if you saw him from like when he was running for president in 1988, which I did, did I ever tell you about Joe Biden night that we used to have at Stitches?
No.
Stitches Comedy Club in 1988, we had Joe Biden night.
And what is that?
That would mean I would go on stage and do your act, and you would go on stage and do my act.
Because he's a plagiarist.
Exactly. So we would call it Joe Biden night, and all the comics would go up and do each other's acts.
That sounds like fun.
It was fun. It was so fun. Because just like some guys, you watch a guy like Jimmy Tingle or, back in those days, Steve Sweeney. You could go up and do their act.
Fitzy.
And the guys you work with all the time, where you got to see their set all the time, you go up and do their act. And we had a great time. But it was open mockery that he was a known plagiarist. In 88?
In 88. I know that's why this rehabilitation, it's all because of Trump derangement syndrome, though they have to pretend like Joe Biden's some kind of guy with integrity and dignity instead of, the horrible criminal anti-worker guy that he's been his whole life. He's been anti-student, anti-worker, and he crushed a goddamn railroad strike. And everybody just memory holds that happened. Like if Trump did that, it would be on billboards forever. And it's what Joe? Why do you think that because my whole life the establishment loved Donald Trump, right?
Well, because the only option is if you don't go with Biden, then you're not with the Democrats. And the Democrats view themselves as a team. They view themselves as a team as much as patriots think of America first. It's like that team is Democrats first. And that's the only representation they have right now. Like, apparently, now I don't know if this is true, but someone was were you telling me about this, Jamie? About the live streaming of, was it you or was it someone else? Of Rob Reiner and all these people.
Oh, they were
earlier too. Like, I'll find the story when I read it
they were
online.
all live streaming the debate and freaking out.
Barbara Streisand's crying.
These people are deranged. These people are no different than the Manson family in that they are in a cult.
Yeah.
They're locked into this ideology. It's not as bad as the Manson family, but it's clearly a cult. It's an ideological cult where you're not willing to go against any of the doctrines of the cult. And one of the
you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to have. You have to practice groupthink, and that's
yeah.
that.
And Bill Maher's a heretic, even though he's very much a liberal. He's a heretic because he says
every once in a while he'll tell the truth.
A lot of times,
Yeah.
he's not as informed as I'd like him to be about some of the stuff, like MK Ultra, the WEF,
or Ukraine.
Well, I don't know what he knows about Ukraine, but he hates Donald Trump. But I think I couldn't figure it out on the pocket. Like, he wouldn't even have a rational discussion as to why he hates him. He's crazy.
Yeah.
But the thing I found out that he was sued by Donald Trump.
Yes. So that's
probably it.
Because when he said that he was an orangutan. And so he sued him.
Hollywood's debate watch party with Rob Reiner. Jane Fonda ended in shouts and tears. That should have been fuck keeping up with the Kardashians. That should be the fucking the real.
And that's what you
reality
get.
show.
And I say good for you. That's what you get for fucking lying. They've all lied. I think the media took just as big a hit as Joe Biden did that night.
Yes.
Because now, just a few weeks ago, there's that Joe Scarborough, that mental case on Morning Joe on MSNBC, and he was saying, let me tell you something, and if you don't believe it, F you. He says this on 6 in the morning. This is what he's telling his audience. F you. This is the best version of Joe Biden I've ever seen. You saw that clip, right? This is the best version. And then
let's play it. Let's play it because it's amazing.
It is amazing.
Wasn't he a Republican at one point in time?
And they say that Trump is the liar. It's like they are right now in the middle of telling the biggest lie that's ever been told in politics. This is bigger than FDR can walk. This is bigger than that.
Hampton real estate is not cheap. And you got to do some things maybe you don't want to do if you want to buy that sweet house and just drink your champagne by the lake. Just looking, or the bay rather, just looking over in the ocean going, I fucking made it, baby. Yeah. I'm here in the Hamptons.
And it's.
I'm about to go to dinner with Rob Reiner.
Hey, I've always said, hey, I don't know if I'm better or worse than those people, but I've never had no one ever made an offer to buy me out. So I don't know how I would react.
I don't think it's a buyout or a sellout thing, man. That's a thing that people think. I think what happens is you get locked into a cult. And then I think also you get invited to things with important people. And that 100% will shape the way you talk about stuff. If you get invited to a dinner with Bill Gates and some very important people, when their name comes up, you're going to defend them.
Well, Barack Obama talked about how just being in the room with the donor class changes you. Just being in the room with them. And Chris Hayes wrote a book called The Twilight of the Elite about how that happens. And then he became the thing he wrote about. It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know much about that.
Don't you think it's amazing how they fired the Arab reporters and the Muslim reporters at MSNBC because they were telling a little bit of the truth about what's happening, or they were confronting people over it. And
you have to have one narrative,
and that's it. And then, but none of the they're supposed to stand up for these. Why didn't Rachel Maddow say something? Why didn't Chris Hayes? None of them said anything. None of them, fake tough guy Lawrence O'Donnell. None of them said anything. They just keep your head down and keep taking it. Rachel Maddow gets paid $100,000 a day. Like, to me, I don't know. That's a lot of money.
Good for her.
That's a good.
You can buy a lot of man suits with that money.
Do you have a Joe Scarborough video? When she was being interviewed by Ben, what's his name? Ben, the guy who did Tropic Thunder, Ben. What's
Stiller?
it? Ben Stiller.
Oh, Ben Stiller.
They were wearing the exact same suit.
Of course. Of course. That's one way that, for whatever reason, hardcore lesbians, when they want to be taken seriously, they dress like a man. And they dress like a man in a business outfit.
Yeah.
Like Hannah Gadsby.
Oh, okay.
Look how she dresses. She puts a suit jacket on.
She's fantastic.
I'm serious. I'm here for the meeting. I'm here to explain things to you people.
Kurt can't
look
stop
at Joe Scarborough. What does he say?
Is this the one you're looking for?
Yeah. Let me hear it.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth.
At 6 in the morning. At 6 in the morning. F you.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. I've known him
Not
for
a close
years.
second.
The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years.
And we're all
If it weren't
fucking
the
liars.
truth, I wouldn't say it.
And these people say that Trump's a liar. That's I mean, Trump's a huge bullshitter
Bro,
for sure. But
we're in a Coen Brothers movie.
This is unbelievable. And so, can you imagine the people? I don't know how many people watch that show, but
45 people.
Can you imagine still tuning in after that?
Yes. I would fucking wake and bake and let's go. Tell me about the world, Joe.
Well, I used to watch. Before I went to sleep, I used to I would be up. I used to be a night owl when I was just a comedian before my show, and so I would wait till 3 a.m. I'd be up late. I'm like, oh, I can wait. I can watch Joe Scarborough before I go to bed, Morning Joe. So and the joke I used to do is I watch it before I go to bed because I like to go to bed angry, and I don't know how anybody could watch that again after that. How could you and have any self-respect unless it's you're high and you're enjoying it?
You have to be high and enjoying it, and then it becomes high comedy.
I mean,
because it's so good. That was so good. That was so good. If you put that in a movie, people wouldn't buy it.
I know.
They would go, "Come on, no, that's not real. No one would do that. This is stupid. I've lost my disbelief."
F you. He's going to tell his own audience, F you, if you don't believe Joe Biden's not the
Yeah, if I was in a movie theater, my suspension of disbelief would go, "Oh, come on, this is."
That's why I was confused when I was looking. There's other videos I'm seeing that might have been a different time, and.
No.
That was just a few weeks ago.
I know, but this is saying right here, post the debate, and he's saying like they should replace.
After the debate, he changed his tune. That's part of the thing.
Okay.
So that was right before the. So that was like weeks before.
After. Okay.
No, that was weeks before the debate. He's saying that. I'm like, can you believe the balls on these
crazy
people?
balls? And so then after the debate, he does this 180, and there's all these videos that show him before and after.
So
the greatest 180 turnaround of all time.
So if you go to the one up there with the black and white Joe, and then
that's the one.
Show that. It's only 30 seconds. Watch this.
But I undersold him when I said he was cogent.
Cogent.
He's far beyond cogent.
Oh, in
fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God. In June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task.
So that's just a matter of weeks in between those two Joes.
Yeah.
F you. And I wouldn't say it if it wasn't the truth. Okay, now thank God we can replace them. But I have a theory about this, by the way.
Okay.
So they've never done presidential debates this early in the election season before, right? And so my theory is that his own team sabotaged him. They knew this. So they wanted to get Joe Biden through the primary because now all the delegates are beholden to Joe Biden, means they're beholden to the Democratic Party donor class, right?
Yes.
So there isn't no 50% Bernie Sanders delegates out there, right? They're not going to have any trouble getting them to all coalesce at the convention and pick a new person. So they wanted to get Joe Biden to go through, and then as soon as he got through the thing, they're like, oh, let's have a debate. And then they knew he would look like this, so then they can have enough time to get rid of him. That seems pretty plausible that that's what's going to happen. And guess what's going to happen now? So they're going to have a person at the top of the ticket who nobody voted for because they're going to choose them at the convention, and nobody voted for this person, and they're saying democracy's on the ballot. That's the irony.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but what did they do to keep RFK Jr. out of the primaries to the point where he had to go independent?
So, yeah, they were making it impossible for him to get on ballots. How did they do that? You know what? He told me, but I can't remember. But they were making it. Well, when I remember the first time I had him on my show, it was like a joke. I'm like, dude, you're running as a Democrat. I go, why do you think they have super delegates? They have super delegates for people like you. It's not going to happen. I can't get excited about your candidacy. And so anything he said, I just didn't get into it, right? I was appreciative of the stuff he was saying around COVID and things like that. But it was just, I told him it's a fool's errand, right? And he's like, I'm a Democrat. I've always been a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. And I'm like, yeah, the Democrats are going to screw you. And they did. And so I don't know exactly how, but it got so untenable that he couldn't run inside because they would have these different rules that they were just just making up just to screw him. So
now,
then
do they do this once there's an incumbent, right? Once there's a president in place, do they do this because there's so many jobs that are completely dependent upon that guy being in office? Not just the Democratic Party, but that guy. So if a new guy comes in, like if RFK Jr. comes in, if he wins, then everyone's out of a job.
Oh, yeah. Well,
the whole machine's out of a job. So it's very clear watching Joe Biden talk, very clear, that he's not making all his decisions and someone writes his stuff down. We've seen the cue cards that he has. They tell him what to say. We see him read teleprompters and say, end of quote. You know, he says things like that. He just did it again. Does it all the time. So we know that there's no fucking way he's the man behind the machine. So that means there's a bunch of people that work for him that are essentially running the country.
Right.
And those people don't want to lose that position, including his wife. His wife apparently, by all takes, and she did an interview afterwards where she said he's smarter than he's ever been, and I know him. I see him buying clothes. She doesn't want him to stop.
Pure evil.
What is that?
That's
what do you
pure,
think?
That's just pure evil. I mean,
do you think it's just like a power thing? She's in power. She doesn't want to not be the first lady anymore. Like, what is it?
Yeah, of course. That's what I think it is. Well, how could you not have compassion for your own frickin' husband? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, he should have had his keys taken away years ago.
Yeah.
And here she is trying. And you did a good job. You answered all the questions.
Crazy.
That's how you talk to a 3-year-old. He answered all the questions. I could see answering one or two, but all of them?
If my wife talked to me like that, I would just start laughing because I'd think, oh, she's fucking with me. I wouldn't just stand there.
Yeah,
and
but you would be saying,
yes, I did. It's a wild video. Play that video. Play that video of Jill saying that to Joe because I saved it.
And by the way, I listened to the debate again on the plane.
Why? You fucking get the pertinent information from round one? You're like, I need to go over this with a fine-tooth comb.
Because they kept saying that, because the line now is that Joe might not have answered the questions, like quickly or loudly, but he was telling the truth. His first answer, he lied 3 times. Joe Biden. He lied about the Medicare's. It's $2,000. He said it was $200. He lied about the diabetes, and he lied about Trump saying the bleach thing. Trump never said the bleach thing. He was talking about ultraviolet irradiation, which is a real thing that actually works.
It actually works, and not only that, they've used it for decades.
Yeah, but
and there was talk about using it for respiratory diseases and shining light into the lungs.
I've talked to a doctor who told me that. That worked well, and so the people like the medical association, they came to him. They go, "Hey, you have to sell this technology to us," and he said no. And they go, "Well, if you don't, we're going to have a bullshit study that says this doesn't work." And that's exactly what they did.
Wow!
And they do that to everything.
Let's play this real quick.
You did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the.
Bro.
And let me ask the crowd.
Look at him standing there.
What did Trump do? Lie!
Oh, bro, he looks so baffled. First of all, if I was in his corner, first thing I would have done is given him a hairpiece. Let's go, bro. I wish you can't compete with Trump's wacky hair. You need fake hair. You need fully fake hair. I think they'll buy it. Don't even sweat it. We're gonna glue a nice piece on you. You're gonna have a distinguished head of hair. Second of all, whoever the fuck is giving your Botox, back off a little. Let the guy move the forehead a little bit. This is ridiculous. You're not tricking me into thinking he's young. I know exactly how old he is.
Go to the watch how she. Oh no, that's not it.
When she helps him off the stage.
Yes, this is it. Watch it. She has to walk him down the steps.
Yeah.
Are they going to show it? Show it.
Well, yeah, he's got some bad knees.
Show it.
Old war injuries, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was defending the Girl Scouts from the Taliban.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this.
I know, it's crazy. He has to go sideways.
And if you don't think that's the best version, fuck you, Joe.
F you.
F you.
I love that guy because he's the tough guy Democrat.
Yeah.
He's our
But he's a
bulldog.
Republican.
But no. He's a Democrat. He's on TV.
Oh,
on
yeah.
CNBC.
MSNBC.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, that just goes to show you that there's no difference between the parties. And I remember when Donnie Deutsch accidentally let it slip out on Joe Scarborough's show.
Is Joe Scarborough actually a Republican?
He was a Republican congressman.
But does he consider himself one now?
I think so.
For real?
I mean,
just like a never Trump Republican?
Never Trump Republican. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Donnie Deutsch said that I remember if Bernie Sanders wins this was back in 2020. If Bernie Sanders wins, I'll have to vote for Trump. And Joe Scarborough's like, do you hear what you're saying? And Donnie Deutsch's like, oh yeah. I don't know why I said that. I know why you said that, because you fucking would. That's why. They're scared of people who Bernie Sanders presents as being. Turns out Bernie Sanders isn't that guy. Bernie Sanders is a lapdog to power.
But he just seem to become that as of recently?
Yeah, I mean, I think he
Do you
always
think
was.
he's
He
just
was
tired?
When you go back in time, and he didn't. He stopped talking to Ralph Nader. He stopped talking to Michael Parente. He was for the bombing of Kosovo. He's always been a little bitch for the military-industrial complex, and it's disgusting. And so if you really look, I got so excited about Bernie Sanders, right? I mean, I've never been more excited about a politician in my life. And I've never been more let down by a politician in my life. And they lied about the CARES Act, and he lied about putting, we had to do it for the unemployment. Like, that was just the largest, that was the largest upward transfer of wealth in human history, was the CARES Act. And nobody talks about that.
Explain the CARES Act to people.
So that was right when COVID hit, and they passed that $5 trillion bill, $5 trillion, just out of nowhere. They didn't go tax people for it. They just fucking printed it. $5 trillion, and that was considered the largest upward trend. So that's, remember, and none of them, there was no money in there for pay people's salaries. Remember, like, that's what other countries did.
What did the $5 trillion go towards?
Went towards the 1,000 richest motherfuckers in the country, basically. That's what, that's where you got if you had a business, you could apply for some kind of PPE loan and stuff like that. And
a lot of people scam those loans.
A lot of people.
I've seen so many arrests of people
I
that
got
bought
one of them.
Lamborghinis and shit. You got one of them?
I was
loans?
like, fuck, everybody else is getting one. I better get one.
Wow.
And I was like, I told
pay your staff and everything like that?
Yeah, I told my wife, I go, we don't know what's going to happen. So I said, hey, apply, see what happens. They gave it to us. I was like, what? I couldn't fucking believe it.
So you have to pay it back? Is that what it is?
No.
It's just free money?
No, if you don't lay off anybody, like for a certain amount of time, then you get to keep it. But if you did,
What?
yes.
You just get free money?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yes.
That's
Everybody
crazy.
it was $5 trillion they gave out. Joe? Yeah.
And they gave it out probably to companies that didn't lose profit.
I bet. Yeah.
Right? So if they didn't fire companies and it didn't stop operations.
I wonder if somebody should look into how much did Amazon get? Did they get money? Did they get that kind of money? Even though
they're smart. They got paid.
Yeah.
There's a dirty, corrupt system. They're a part of it. Let's go. Let's party. I think we can bust this move out. Everybody's sick.
But don't you think
it's called the CARES Act?
It's called the CARES
Act.
Act.
Like the Patriot Act. What? Aren't you a patriot?
And they say, yeah.
Are you a patriot, Jimmy?
You don't care about America?
Why do you care about America or not?
Why do you hate freedom?
Yeah. Why do you hate freedom? You won't sign the Patriot Act.
It's called the Patriot Act. The most Nazi-like thing ever. The government can now spy on
that's
you.
That's the Patriot Act too.
Oh, okay.
You're thinking of the Patriot Act too.
Okay. Electric Boogaloo?
Or the National Defense Authorization Act.
Oh, yeah.
Those ones that passed through.
In the 2011 NDAA, Section 1021, Barack Obama got rid of habeas corpus.
That's not important. What's really important is that we get these trillionaires all their money for COVID.
Got rid of habeas corpus, Joe. So now, habeas corpus was in the Magna Carta. Mm-hmm. So now we're operating on a liberty view from somewhere around the 1100s. That's and people don't. Democracy's on the ballot. You fucking more. Democracy hasn't been on the ballot for decades and decades. You don't live in a democracy. You live in an oligarchy, which was proven by a Princeton study over 10 years ago. And when are you going to get pissed off about that? No, because the TV guy says, no, it's the Joe Biden's democracy and Trump isn't. And don't you love all that shit about how, he'll never leave office? I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know a president could just decide to not. So every president has left office just because they're good people? Just because they decided to? Oh, he's going to be a dictator. I didn't know a president. I thought we had co-equal branches of government. How is this all shit? They just say this shit, and none of it's true, and they all just make it up. He was already president one time. He left office.
Thing. Yeah, we
already lived through it.
Everybody's pretending that if he gets into office, he's going to be the horrible thing that they predicted that didn't take place when he was in office for 4 years.
Why wouldn't he?
What evidence are you basing this on? The evidence that when he was actually the president, and he was for 4 fucking years,
right?
Like he did none of those things. He didn't prosecute his political rivals. He didn't go after Hillary Clinton.
He didn't lock her up, even though she's a super criminal.
He didn't
remember the FBI, the Comey guy came out and he said, Yeah, this is going to sound crazy in a couple of different ways, but yes, we found hundreds of high-level documents, secret, classified documents on her server. But we're not going to prosecute her. I know this is going to sound weird. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
They somebody made a hilarious video out of it. They put it to music.
It was weird at the beginning because a lot of people, myself included, saw him firing Comey. I'm like, whoa, you're going to fire the head of the FBI because he doesn't like you? Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. And
Comey's a piece of shit.
Well, because of that, what I was going to say is because of that happening, it caused so many people to start going, what has the FBI done? Like, what are they doing? And then you start reading stories and you start understanding the history of it. And you're like, oh, what? What did they do? What have they been involved in?
I know one.
Good things. A lot of good things. There's a few, but like whenever, with any kind of large organization, there's a lot of competitive people trying to rise to the top. You're going to get unscrupulous fellas.
Sociopaths. Rise to the top.
Yeah, and they're going to do some things. And if they're in high positions of power and they can manipulate everyone around them to go with it, that's what you get. You get in every human situation where people are in
what
control.
you get January 6th. Yeah. That's what you get. You get Russiagate. I know that the FBI lied to the FISA court 17 times so they could get a tap on Donald Trump's phones. That happened. They lied to the FISA court 17 times. Nobody talks about that. Nobody pays a price for that. They did it to the goddamn. I'm sure you saw the video of when Chuck Schumer was on with Rachel Maddow, and he says, talking about Trump, that he's being really dumb to criticize the intelligence community, meaning the CIA and the FBI. And Rachel Maddow says, why? And he says, because they've got 6 ways to Sunday to mess with you back. So what he really was saying there, that was the leading Democrat in the Senate, the leader of the party. He was telling people into a camera that the president, that the CIA and the FBI doesn't work for the president, that he has to worry about them. And if they don't work for the president, who the fuck do they work for, Joe?
Right. Exactly.
And of course, Rachel Maddow never asked that question. She's never going to do that because, she's a lapdog of the military-industrial complex, Wall Street, Big Pharma, all of them. They're all the same.
It's a natural thing that takes place when any organization gets extreme power. And that was supposed to be mitigated, right? And this is like the problem that Kennedy had with secret societies. This is the problem that Kennedy had with the CIA and what Kennedy had with the NSA. Whenever you get people that are above everything, like this concept of the deep state, you put your tinfoil hat on when you just say the word deep state. Everybody who is not paying attention, people that are just reading mainstream news, you say deep state, they go, oh God, he's a QAnon guy. I gotta get out of here. The deep state's real. And it's
100%.
It's real. It's the intelligence community.
And Chuck Schumer said they don't work for the president. Okay, well, what?
They don't.
And they don't.
They don't.
And so they would even brag about it when Trump first became president. They would go on, Comey and other people would go on interviews and they would say, Mr. President, we're going to be here we were here before you, we're going to be here after you.
Yeah.
So they don't give a shit about the president. They're just saying it out loud. They would say it out loud. And so, so people are conditioned.
But isn't that just what happens when you have competitive human beings locked into these organizations that have extreme power? It's just you're always going to have that with human beings. These are like human behavior patterns that they always follow. It's that
just like our country is ending the way all empires end. We overextend ourselves militarily, which brings me to what is that you're smoking?
It's a cigar.
Oh, really?
When I don't want a full cigar, I smoke one of these little tiny Monte Cristos. It's a little baby cigar. You want a cigar?
No.
I'll smoke a real one with you.
No, I did that once, and it made because I used to smoke cigarettes. And I'm like, everybody started smoking cigars at one time when I first moved to Los Angeles. I was like, I could smoke cigars.
These are nice ones because Ron White turned me onto these.
It woke up the beast and I started smoking cigarettes again. Yeah, no good. So I can't do it. I even quit smoking pot recently last September.
I heard.
You did?
Yeah, I watched that video. I thought it was really interesting.
Oh, it makes people sad when I say it on stage.
Oh, that's silly. That's silly.
People go, it makes them upset. And I'm like, it really woke me up to a lot of things. I don't know. People go, why? Why'd you quit? I don't even know why I quit. Like, I feel like it was, I think it came from a higher power.
Yeah, I know you were saying that too. I'm going to get a cigar while we're talking.
You're going to get a real cigar?
A real cigar.
Oh, okay. What made you go from I want a little one to a big one just now?
We're going to talk about something serious.
Oh, okay. God damn it, it smells. Well, the thing why I stopped is because it smells so fucking good. And
but I see what your point is, though, and I see what you're saying. And there's a thing that can happen with marijuana or with anything that alters your state of consciousness, including coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, everything. Is you're using that to sort of cope and exist, and you're not really being present. You're always being present under the influence of these things. And I've been guilty of that myself. Just sometimes you just want to catch a buzz. Don't want to be here. I just want to have a couple of whiskeys. I don't want to be here. I want to be here, but just be, It's like sometimes the world's overwhelming. And I think you miss a lot if you live in that state. You miss a lot. Like one of the things that happens with people that have drug problems when they're young is they don't really mature properly. Because they spent, 15, 16, 17 doing meth, doing coke, partying.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the time they get clean and sober, like they're grown-up babies.
Yes, they say that. They say that when your addiction starts, you get locked into that level of maturity that you're at until your addiction ends.
Yes, and then you start growing, but now you're growing in a confused state. And you've also got this anxiety that's sometimes crippling because if you wasted a giant chunk of your life and not made any progress, and here you are a beginner at 35 years old, and you're out here in the world trying to get a regular job at 35, and nobody wants to hire you because you've been in 15 rehabilitation centers and you got locked up for stealing hubcaps, catalytic converters or whatever. It's like the thing that it does to you is it separates you from normal reality. And that could be a positive or a negative. If you have discipline and control and you're present and you really spend a lot of time thinking alone by yourself and meditating, you can use things to alter your state of consciousness to achieve new thoughts. You tap into new ideas.
Pot helped me a lot comedically. It helped me.
It's comedy steroids.
Yeah, it was a big deal for me. It took me from being I was a very narrow and rigid comedian, and then it opened me up, and it made me a much better comedian, is all I can say. And it worked for a long time. And it didn't take away my discipline. I still had lots of discipline comedically, and then when I started my podcast in 2008 or 9, and then my radio show, and then I was always.
Yeah, you're OG, 2008 or 9.
Yeah.
You're up there with me then. We were at the same time.
Yep.
Wow.
I started with Todd Glass. I started a show called Comedy and Everything Else, and we would interview comedians, and then. I did 152 episodes of that, and I just got tired of it. And then I started doing the Jimmy Dore Show because I got a radio show on KPFK in Los Angeles, which is a public radio show. So it was all politics and comedy, And so I just shifted over to that, and it was a pretty popular. Still is the pop. I mean, it would get 50 to 60,000 downloads per episode, but it never sold tickets. It's the weirdest thing. And but when I went on YouTube, that was immediately I started selling tickets. Immediately. No, and that's as you know, that changes your whole life.
Yeah, the YouTube thing's that's a different world. Everybody has it. It's on every phone. It's on everybody. If you have Apple TV, people. I watch YouTube more than I watch Netflix.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, because if I watch Netflix, it's I want to watch Peaky Blinders. I sit down and watch it. But if YouTube's let me just fuck around and see what's going on in the world of ancient archaeology. Let me watch a professional pool match.
Amazing.
Let me see this new muscle car build. I get lost for hours. If I want to zone out, if I'm exhausted and I just want to zone out, I've did everything that I have to do. I just want to just chill. YouTube. I go right to YouTube.
Yeah.
So, hey, Jimmy Dore, what's he talking about? Oh, I didn't know that. And then I'm watching you yell at Cornel West or some other fucking person. And I'm like, this is amazing. Jimmy's a mad dog.
I love how mad. I love having Kurt on the show because he gets upset, and subplay. And then I get to be amused by it instead of me getting upset.
Yes. Oh, it's a perfect balance.
Kurt's sitting there going, everything's a fucking psyop. And everything, your whole life, everything in the world, okay? Everything. That's at the 2.5 hour mark of the show. Everything, every fucking thing, everything. And it gives me joy.
So you were saying before I interrupted you that you think that it was a higher calling, that quitting pot.
So I started, and when COVID happened, I started getting into Carl Jung and my unconscious and analyzing my dreams. And then I realized that that there is what Carl Jung calls God is a transpersonal self. And he's the one who kind of figured out we have a collective unconscious, that we're all, so there only is one conscious. I mean, you've done DMT and all shit, so you get all that. But he was able to give himself like a mushroom trip when he was conscious without taking mushrooms, right? And he would call it active imagination. So he could go into his unconscious and confront all these things that, like archetypes and God, that lives in your unconscious. And he had to have a person that was there to make sure he didn't go crazy. And so he did this for like 4 years, from like 1913 to 1917. And he wrote it down in a thing called the Red Book, which he would not allow to be published for 50 years after he died. Whoa. Because he knew if people read it, it would discredit his work in psychology, because it sounds crazy, all the shit. It's like he had mushroom trips and he would write it down, right? But it was real. And so what he did, during those 4 years, he then spent the rest of his life trying to explain to people what he had learned in those 4 years in ways that they could understand it. And so that's what the rest of his life was about. And they asked him, I remember they asked him, do you believe in God? He says, I don't believe in God, I know. And I was like, man, that's badass when you can say shit like that. And so anyway, I started to get into this. And so he figured out that we have a collective unconscious, because he would see these symbols in his dreams. And he knew that they were like meaningful, but he didn't know what they meant. And then he started to study alchemy, which alchemy isn't what you think it is. Alchemy was about turning a psychological lead into psychological gold. And they were onto a lot of shit. And they had to keep it secret because of the church, I guess. And so they had to speak in code, kind of. And so he started to read alchemy, and he started to see these symbols that were in his dreams that they had written about, and they had already figured out what it meant. And he was like, well, how the fuck could I have a dream about something I didn't know I never read this book before. I don't know and that's how he started to figure that out. And so that shit has happened to me. I'll see symbols in my dreams. This happened. So I was, this is going to sound crazy. So I'm in the jungle, in a clearing, and this creature comes over to me. It looks like a big ape. His body's like a big gorilla, but his head is like half of a lion, half human. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he puts his hand out, and I'm like, oh, he's going to crush me. But I put my hand in his hand, and he took my hand gently, and he walked me into the jungle. And I was like, what the? So I tell this to I have an analyst Jungian analyst who helps me decipher what my dreams mean. And he said, that's an archetypal God, and that was them telling you it's time for you to go into the jungle of your unconscious, but you'll be safe if you long. And I was like, oh, so then like a month later, I'm reading this book, and there's that fucking thing, the ape with the lion. I'm like, I'm like, what? That's the thing I saw in my dream. Like, how did that show up in my dream before I ever saw it before or knew? So I'm having the exact same.
Is there a drawing of this in Jung's book, or is it just description in Jung's book?
It's called a Mithraic God. That's what I come to know. I was like, that's the fucking thing that was in my dream. So there's also another thing called the old man. So Carl Jung talks about this a lot. Like, he would meet the old man in his dream, which was like a transpersonal self of God. Yeah, like
That's
that.
It? Wow.
Yeah.
So that's an
like,
archetypal character.
Yeah. And I'm like, how the fuck did that?
And you had no idea, and that thing showed up in your dream.
Never seen it. Yeah.
Wow. And so that's depicted all throughout history, it looks like.
I had no idea. So
how bizarre.
I had this big decision to make in my life. And it was, so what Carl Jung says is that your unconscious, your transpersonal self, will create a scenario for you where there's no way out. There's no matter which way you go, you lose. So I was in one of those. And I had a dream, and I'm standing in line at a Starbucks at an airport, and this guy taps me, and I see a shortcut. So whenever there's a shortcut, I'm gonna because it's a long line, and so I figured out I can go over here and I can sneak and get in and get my coffee first, and so I'm like doing that, and all of a sudden this taps, and it's the old man with the gray hair that Carl Jung had talked about. I didn't know it at the time, And I just thought this old man, he didn't say anything to me. It's like he just grabs my hand and he points to the end of the long line. And I go, fuck you, old man. Get away from me. What the fuck do you know? And,
Whoa.
well, yeah, well, now I eventually did take the long line in my, not in the dream, but in my life. And as soon as I did, so Carl Jung has another saying. He says, the biggest problems in your life can never be solved. They can only be outgrown. And so I outgrew that. I was like, oh, so it happened. And so I've had these experiences of.
So, but you didn't finish that thought. Like, what was wrong with the back of the line? Like, what did you realize by going to the back of the line?
It's like I don't want. It's a little personal. So like about the situation in my waking life. But I just knew that what I had to do then. Right. Once I realized that the old man, that was my transpersonal self telling me, you got to do this, and so I had an awakening. I outgrew this problem because it was like my Jungian analyst refers to it as you're on a crucifix right now, and the only thing you can do is hold, maintain, don't make a decision, don't do one thing or the other, just hold, and then something will appear. And that's what appeared. It was in my dream. It coincided with the synchronicity in me reading a book about what I was supposed to do. I'm like, holy fuck.
What do you think dreams are?
So I think it's a mistake to dismiss them. I think dreams are the same consciousness that creates this waking life, creates your dream life, right? And they're important. And if the more attention you pay to them, the more you'll get out of them. And the more it'll rise up to meet you. And so I keep a dream journal. I write down every dream I have, and you'll start to see patterns. And I've had. So I was reading this book called The Undiscovered Self by Carl Jung, and it's amazing how it fits what's happening right now today, right? And I tried to get to Bobby Kennedy to read it with me, but he says in there, how during COVID. How comedians flipped, and all of a sudden you weren't allowed to question. I do that bit about that you quoted before, and you're not allowed to question and think for yourself. And
it used to be called reading.
Yeah, it used to be called reading. Don't do your own research. It's just reading. So now they're shaming me for reading, right? So Carl Jung talks about that you have a need. You have a psychological need to have an experience of the divine and a deity and all that stuff. And if you don't have that, you're going to create it. And so that's how those people, when I'm reading this book, I'm like, oh, that's what they did with COVID. They turned Fauci into a god. They turned science into a religion.
Right.
That you can't question it, right?
They're archetypes, right?
So that I'm like, what? So they just projected. So Carl Jung's all about projection, that we're projecting all the time, and that's how we get to know ourselves, right? So like when you fall in love with someone, that's his big one is that you have a feminine side inside of you, and it's called your anima if you're a guy, and if you're a female, you have a male, and that's called your animus. And when you fall in love with someone, like, oh, that thing, like, oh my God, I can't live without this person. This is the thing that I've been looking for. That's when you project that part of yourself, it's in your unconscious, onto that person. And so that's a real religious experience because you're rejoining, religion meaning to rejoin, you're joining your conscious self with your unconscious self. And that's why it feels like you're being stimulated from the inside, because you are. And you feel this oneness and this wholeness. And if I lose this person, I'll die. Right. And so that is what most people, that's why guys it happens to guys in their 50s. And that's why a lot of guys leave their wife and they go it's fucking amazing how that happens, right? So that's all projection. And then eventually the projection falls off and then people get divorced, right? Yeah.
Interesting. So the religious experience is the combining of the two souls.
The combining of your conscious self and your unconscious self, right?
In someone else.
And yeah, so you experience it by projecting it on someone else. Oh. So, and that's the phenomena, and nobody knows it. That's the phenomena of love, of romantic love, right? And there's this whole book. There's this old myth about Tristan and Isolde. And I read this whole book by this Jungian scholar that explains what it's all about. And you have to give up. And so, by the way, I meet my anima in my dreams all the time, and it's unbelievable. It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah?
So they have different people's.
How often do you remember your dreams?
Every day.
Really?
Yeah, and so like to the point where if I'm going to have a session with my Jungian analysis, I'll take a nap, and I know I'll have a dream or two, and I'll wake up and we talk about them. I'm a good dreamer, especially when you quit smoking pot.
And is that when the dream started, or did you have
No,
dreams while you were smoking pot?
I had dreams while I was smoking pot.
But they're just more intense
But
now?
then they got, after you quit smoking pot, your dreams become vivid and intense and over the top almost too much, you know? But now it's gone back to a normal level.
So let me ask you this again. What do you think dreams are?
I think dreams are spiritual, whatever is in your spirit, whatever is, it's God, for lack of a better term, trying to communicate with you and talk to you through symbols.
Wow.
That's what I think. I mean, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I've just been into it for like the last 4 years, and I just know my experience. And so
it is very strange how vivid,
and so if you don't have an experience of the divine, you are going to create it, and that's what people did during COVID with science and Fauci and all that shit. They projected it onto that. And luckily enough, I've been having experiences of the divine through my dreams and my dream analysis. And then I also see it when you see synchronicities. Carl Jung talked about synchronicities, which are coincidences that have meaning. They're not just coincidences, right? So, and and once you start to look for them, you see, it's like when you buy a new car, you see that car everywhere. It's like once you start to look for synchronicities, they start to happen. So then it's like I'm constantly in communication with God. That's how I, for lack of a better word, that's how I feel about it, right? And so everything that happens in my dreams and in my waking life comes from the same consciousness. Carl Jung said that the future is set up by your unconscious long in advance, which is why it can be guessed at by clairvoyance. So anyway, this book, the Red Book, that he wrote down his experiences of those 4 years where he could give himself like a mushroom trip, and it finally got published in 2010. And I'm not even able to read it. I just look at it, it's just like super confusing, and it looks like crazy talk. So what I do is I read books that he wrote up, after he had that experience, and I read books by other Jungian scholars explaining shit, because he's dense, man. He puts a lot of info in a little bit of, like, it took me a week I was reading a book called the Mysterium Canunccio that he wrote, and it took me like a week, just the opening paragraph, just to keep going. Oh, like, what the fuck?
I tried reading his book on flying saucers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What is Carl Jung's book on flying saucers called? But he had this concept about flying saucers. He thinks they're constructs of the mind, but not necessarily that they're not real. It's a very strange flying saucer. It's a modern myth. If you go to the back, go back to where a modern myth of things seen in the sky.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard about this.
See if you could find just a synopsis. What did Carl Jung believe about UFOs? See, does it say here? Okay, what does it say? In the late 50s, the height of the popular fascination with UFOs, flying saucers is the great psychologist's brilliant, prescient meditation on the phenomenon that gripped the world. A self-confessed skeptic in such matters, Jung was nevertheless intrigued not so much by their reality or unreality, but by their psychic aspect. He saw flying saucers as a modern myth in the making, to be passed down the generations just as we have received such myths from our ancestors. In this wonderful and enlightening book, Jung sees UFOs as visionary rumors, the center of a quasi-religious cult, and carriers of our technological and salvationist fantasies. 40 years later, with entire religions based on the writings of science fiction authors, it is remarkable to see just how right he has proved to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to read that book.
Yeah.
I think the best book to start with Carl Jung is Memories, Dreams, Reflections, which is his biography that he wrote. Mm-hmm. And that he lets you in on a little, because he was more than a psychologist. He was a mystic.
Right.
And it's made all the difference in my life. I considered myself a Sam Harris atheist. I used to call myself, and that was mostly a reaction to being brought up Catholic, and so I was rejecting religion, but at the same time I was also rejecting spirituality, and I didn't realize it. But now, because of this experience, I realize, oh no, that it's just terminology. God is real. There is your ego doesn't control things. Your ego needs, once you can make your ego subservient to the transpersonal self and your unconscious, that's the key to life. Realizing that you're just, the way I describe it to people is that, we're all part of consciousness. Consciousness is an ocean, and then there's a huge wave. The part of the consciousness we see is the wave, right? And all I can do is surf that wave. I can't create that wave. I can't control it. All I can do is try to surf it as best I can. And by making yourself, your ego subservient to, and keeping your eye on the transpersonal center, which is what Carl Jung talks about, that's kind of the key. It's unless you experience it, it's hard to understand. It's even hard for me to explain it.
But it does make sense.
It's like trying to explain a DMT trip, I'm guessing. I've never done DMT.
It does make sense that a person like that is trying to understand how the human mind works would have to take into account all sorts of bizarre things like UFO sightings, psychic experiences, dream states, endogenous psychedelic experiences through, there's a bunch of different ways you can reliably achieve psychedelic states without any drugs. One of them that I've done recently even is holotropic breathing. And if you do holotropic breathing, you have what's almost like a mushroom trip.
What is that?
It's Google holotropic breathing so you can get I don't butcher the definition of it, but also a lot of people do breathing exercises in sensory deprivation tanks, which provides very vivid psychedelic experiences with no drugs at all.
I did my first breathing exercise ever this morning.
This is just talking about the study of it. There's a way to do. Maybe I said the wrong word. So breathing to induce psychedelic states. Just write breathing to induce psychedelic states. I might have used the wrong word. All right, here we go. Breathing their way to an altered state.
Oh, that's from the look at it. It's in the
yes,
right there in the fastball.
New York Times, January 10th. So you know it's a lie. Okay, what does it say here? So do they call it holotropic breathing, or am I using the wrong terminology? Okay, there it is. Vigorous modality known as holotropic breath work is offered at the end of an 8-month training, 8 months before they get you the holotropic breathing, to provide a lawful taste of the therapeutic potential and pitfalls of altered states of consciousness. So Dr. J.J. Purcell, a naturopathic doctor from Oregon, was amongst the trainees that walked into the early October session skeptical that a couple hours of intense breathing could induce anything close to a psychedelic trip, but she was stunned. The depth of what I experienced was so similar to psilocybin, Dr. Purcell marveled, referring to the psychoactive compound in magic mushrooms. It was trippy.
So you did that?
Yeah, I've done that a bunch of times.
And does it work?
Yeah, it definitely works. Especially works in a tank or when you're lying in bed, when you're quiet.
So you just did a certain kind of breathing for hours?
Yeah, Google what is the protocol for for holotropic breathing. There's just a specific way you're supposed to do it. But I can achieve some reasonable form of a psychedelic state by just concentrating on breath. I have this thing that I do, and I do it when I can't sleep. My mind is racing, right? So I force my mind to concentrate on one thing, and that's in with the good, out with the bad. Those are the only words I allow in my head. So as I breathe in, I go in, I lose track. I start thinking about, oh, I forgot to call that guy back. I start thinking, but then I get back to it. In with the good, out with the bad. In with the good, out with the bad. In long breaths, when I'm doing that, I'm only allowing those words in my head. The other ones are getting in there, but I'm pushing them out. Get out of the door. I'm the bouncer. And then eventually I can achieve this very strange state. This very strange state that with your eyes closed, you start seeing patterns. You see this weird sort of matrix, for lack of a better term, almost like a geometric grid of the world. And you just keep, and usually I fall asleep when I'm doing that. But I can stay awake. and it takes a while. You might take 15, 20 minutes of doing that, but you get in there. And I know that people that do Kundalini yoga, I have a friend who did Kundalini yoga, and he said, and he has also done DMT. He said it is the exact same place. You can absolutely get there. You just have to be rigorous. You have to practice it for a long time. But they have a specific type of like nodding and bobbing they do with intense breath work that gets you to this endogenous dump of psychedelic chemicals. So one of the reasons why it's so insane that sweeping 1970s psychedelic drug act took place is not just that they used it to target civil rights leaders and anti-war movement people and the Black Panthers and anybody that was inconvenient, but also that it stopped us from being able to explore what these things are. So one of the terms that psychedelics use, that people, when they talk about psychedelics, it's one of the more lofty terms, is entheogen. And what entheogen means, essentially, it's like this is something that connects you to God. Like, what is the term entheogen? What's the literal translation of entheogen? But that this is what they think. Here it is. A chemical substance, typically of plant origins, that is ingested to produce a non-ordinary state of consciousness for religious or spiritual purposes. I think that's what most religions are based on. I think they're based on either an understanding of how to achieve psychedelic states endogenously, or people coming into contact with psilocybin, Amanita muscaria. There's a variety of different things that they probably came in contact with. There's scholars out of Jerusalem now that believe that the interpretation from Moses in the burning bush, that burning bush was probably the acacia tree. And the acacia tree is rich in DMT. Now, it just completely makes sense that burning a bush that is rich in DMT would connect Moses to God, and God would give Moses these commandments for how mankind should live. That completely makes sense. Well, it's probably a psychedelic experience, and there's probably a bunch of different ways to get them. I think that's what monks are doing when they're spending the entire day isolated and meditating. I think they're achieving I think that's why they're willing to keep doing it. I think that's why they're willing to stay. Everybody's like, oh, those poor bastards. Look at them. No pussy. Dressed like a retard. Like, look at them. This stupid fucking orange robe. But those people, I think, are connecting to something, some other state that is more exciting than this one that we're kind of trapped in.
Well, I've had the experience of, I've only done mild doses of mushrooms in my life, maybe 5 or 6 times. And the last time I did it, I remember when I would close my eyes, it would seem more real than when I opened my eyes. It was like, oh, everything seemed flat and uninteresting. And when I closed my eyes, I was like, this is the real thing. Mm-hmm. I'd like to stay here longer. So it's got to be what you said. That's why people are willing to sit in a cave and meditate every day, and because it's more real. It's a more like a rich experience.
I think we operate under the biological dimension. That's where our thing moves around, under the biological dimension, and all of our senses are tuned into the biological dimension because it involves injury and death and illness and crime and injustice and all these different things that can get you all ramped up in the biological dimension. But we're also connected to something else. And you can define that thing. You can call it things. You can call it heaven, the well of souls. You could call it a bunch of different things. I think calling it anything is a problem because we don't know what the fuck it is. But whatever it is, I think there's a bunch of different ones. And Terence McKenna described it as a mandala. Like that there's like a mandala of different psychedelic experiences that the human body and the human mind is capable of experiencing. And that there's all sorts of different ones. You're going to a different neighborhood. And that these chemical gateways that get you into these states, that's what these psychedelic drugs are. We're looking at it like, oh, he's just escaping reality. I think they're chemical gateways. I think they're chemical gateways into other dimensions, into some other realm that you cannot get there with this thing that's worried about, oh, I'm getting a belly. It's
because your
I have
ego.
to do this. Yeah, ego. And just the reality of having to pay your bills and keep the lights on. There's just like too much weird shit here that distracts you. Joe Biden's fine. He's the best version of Joe Biden ever seen. And you're driving to work going, I'm in the upside down world. This is like fucking Stranger Things. Like, what is happening here? This is crazy. Mm-hmm. And you're losing your fucking mind. And that all this chaos this is like if the devil and God were real. This is the chaos. This is hell. The hell is this confusion and this constant lack of peace. Everyone's filled with anxiety.
Well, Jesus said, there's a quote, that the kingdom of my Father is laid upon the earth, but the eyes of men don't see it. So, so we're creating our own hell, right? And it's, I think, over-identification with the ego mind, which is different than, you got a big ego. That's different. The ego mind is like what you're conscious of, your idea of who you are. And then the things that you don't like, according to Jung, you split them off and you put them into your unconscious. So when people who hate Trump, like when you see people who have Trump derangement syndrome, that's because they're projecting that part of themselves that is like Trump onto him. And so then they can hate that. And that when you have a big reaction to something external, whether it's you love something intensely or you hate something intensely, that tells you it's about you. That's about so I never hated Trump. I hated the system that got us Trump. Like that's I tried to keep my focus on. It was because Barack Obama bailed out the banks and kicked 5.1 million families out of their homes, and then went on to give us a right-wing fucking healthcare plan. It was a giveaway to big pharma and insurance company, and he didn't really help. That's what laid the groundwork for people to go for someone like Trump. That always does. So that's what when people hate, the people who hate Trump the most are people who have split off that part of themselves that is Trump and put it in their unconscious, and then they're experiencing themselves as they project it onto him. You know those people. I
know a lot of those people.
Like Rob Reiner. Like Bill Maher. There's lots of those people everywhere. And they, and then they just tell these fantasies about him. He's never going to leave. Oh, Robert De Niro. Yeah. Now, Kurt's convinced that Robert De Niro's on some kind of Epstein list or some kind of thing like that, and then he's afraid that if Trump does get power, he's going to expose him, and he is actually going to come at him.
Of course Kurt thinks that.
That's what Kurt thinks that.
Kurt thinks that about every fucking thing that happens in the world.
I think that Robert De Niro's just got Trump derangement syndrome.
I think he's old, too. There's a thing about old men.
And
they want to yell at everybody.
He's completely... Did you see when he went and gave that speech outside of the trial? That was bizarre.
Who told him that was a good idea?
And then he starts yelling at regular people. He's like, fuck you, you're a gangster. Go fuck you.
It's crazy that that's the guy from Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
You know what also I think? I think those guys have no friends. I think the only friends they have are Hollywood phonies. And so you're in this weird world where everybody you talk to is a phony, and you become a phony, and everyone's a phony, and your grasp on reality is very slippery, and your eyes are going, right? So your vision of the world, your actual vision of the world, your ability to read a phone. You ever see old people's text messages? The fucking text on their phone is like as big as my hand.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And so your vision of the world is blurring, literally and figuratively, and then you're getting old, and when old people are tired and cranky, they just want everyone to listen to them, and they don't have time to have a calm conversation. And you state out your opinion, I'll state my opinion. Let's see where we have common ground. Hey, get off my lawn! And that's what he's doing. He's being this old grumpy man that is so lost that he thinks it's a good idea to stand in front of a bunch of people on the street and give a speech on camera about how bad Donald Trump is. With all the shit that's going in the world.
That I know.
All the craziness of the world.
Right now, the guy you're voting for, a lot of people consider is funding a genocide. Right? So you don't think that's horrible? Look again, if he knew what was happening in Ukraine, more people are being slaughtered in Ukraine for what?
And we just signed another 10 years of that.
Yeah.
Signed on for another 10 years. Worth what, $800 billion?
So this is all money funneling operation. That's what Afghanistan was, and as Julian Assange taught us, that these wars aren't meant to be won; they're meant to be ongoing. Because they had a peace agreement, you know that they had a peace agreement almost immediately after the invasion. Russia invaded. They had a peace agreement, and Ukraine agreed to it. Zelensky agreed to it, and they flew Boris Johnson out there and said, "Don't you can't do this, or we're going to kill you." And so he did. That's why he can't do it. Wow. And so that's why this war is ongoing, and they have to rip people off corners and put them in vans to go fight in this fucking war. The average age of the Ukraine military is over 40 years old.
Have you seen the videos of guys getting kidnapped?
Yes, I can't even watch it.
Guys with their families. They grab a guy.
They just grab him.
Grab him, and people are screaming. They're throwing him in a van. You're going to go fight in a war.
I think you lost the war when we already did. So they did.
Yeah.
So, and then of course nobody knows how this war started. You've had Dave Smith on; he explained it.
Yeah.
Nobody still to this day knows about the Maidan coup that the United States got in bed with right-wing Nazis in Ukraine to overthrow a democratically elected government, and then they started bombing the people in the east of Ukraine, called the Donbass, and they wouldn't stop. They had 2 peace agreements called the Minsk Accords. Guess who violated them? The Ukraine. It wasn't that. And so, I've heard people say that, and then of course it was the expansion of NATO, right? The threat of putting NATO on the border of Russia, which everybody from Kissinger to Chomsky and everybody in between said that's a mistake. Don't do that. Well, that's of course what they're doing. And so what's the point of NATO anymore? And then this whole idea they're doing the domino theory again. Oh well, if we allow him to do this to Ukraine, he's going to go to Poland next. And it's the same fucking shit they said all the time. It's the domino theory. And again, the world's terrorists are the United States. Look what we did to Iraq. Look what we did to Libya. Libya, the most successful country in all of Africa. The guy created the 8th wonder of the world with the way how he delivered water and turned deserts into farmland. And everybody had a house and everybody had education and health care. And we turned it into a failed state run by terrorists with open slave markets. Who did that? Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton did that. And they'll never have to pay a price for that. Barack Obama, the most they'll do is go, that was a mistake.
Now, why did they get rid of Gaddafi?
Because he was going to start a currency of Africa that was going to compete with the U.S. dollar and the euro. And they can't have that because the way the United States controls the world is because the United States dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So that's why they can put sanctions on all these countries. And so what they're doing, which they shouldn't do, they're weaponizing the U.S. dollar. And so like when countries want to trade with each other, they have to go take their currency, change it into U.S. dollars so they can trade. And a lot of it was based on the petrodollar, which, by the way, Saudi Arabia just quit. They didn't renew it. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
So, and all of a sudden, CBS News is starting to do news stories about how Saudi Arabia was involved in 9/11. All of a sudden, 24 years later, all of a sudden, oh, you know what? Turns out there was something happened. And they're like, you mean 2 weeks after they decided to not renew the fucking petrodollar? Now CBS News is allowed to talk about that and investigate it, which when I talked about it, got demonetized. But anyway, so that's why, because Gaddafi was doing that. Mm-hmm. He was going to set up a currency for all of Africa, and it was going to be based on have a gold standard. And so they're like, no, you're not. You're not fucking doing that. And they made up a bullshit thing like, we got to save the people. Whatever. You guys, they don't give a fuck about the people in America. They got veterans and everybody else living under every goddamn bridge in this country. You think if they gave a shit about those people, don't you think they'd start helping the people right outside the front door?
Right.
Instead of, no, we got to go help people in Libya, and we got to help people. It's about helping people in Ukraine, and it's about helping people in Taiwan, and it's about no. This is all about an upward transfer of money. This is about balkanizing countries and turning it over to BlackRock and Vanguard. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
That's a good rant. That's a solid rant. Biden is sending $61 billion to Ukraine. Much of it will pass through the U.S. economy first.
You mean in weapons manufacturing and things like that? By the way, there's no oversight.
Isn't it better to just say the U.S. economy? Why do you have to look at the bad side of things?
But this is how they sell it to us. Like, no, we're actually investing in our own country. Hey, if you want to invest in our own country, why wouldn't you build fucking bullet trains? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you build affordable housing for people? Because people can't afford now. The new generation can't afford fucking houses. Why wouldn't you do things for people? Why wouldn't you give people health care that doesn't bankrupt them, or an education that doesn't bankrupt them?
Excuse me, I don't think you read that our military aid to Ukraine is revitalizing manufacturing communities across the United States.
The most inefficient way to stimulate economy is military spending. Now, I've known that for a long time. It's the lowest return on your dollar.
It is a crazy spin.
Because yes. That's how they're doing it. Now that's how they're doing it. Well, you saw Lindsey Graham. I don't know if you saw this. He said that there's $15 trillion in natural in rare earth minerals in Ukraine, and if we don't get it, China's going to get it, and Russia's going to get it. We can't. So now 3 years into this war, you're telling me it's about. Why can't we just do regular economic shit and try to outcompete people? Because that's all this is. These are economic wars that they turn into. Well, Fred Hampton said that politics is war without violence. War is politics with violence.
Yeah.
And so that's what these wars are. None of them are real. They're not what you think they're for. That's all made up. And We keep falling. I can't believe people still fall for the Ukraine war.
They went into that so quick. They got rid of the.
Well, Russiagate set it up. And when I was at the Young Turks, I would tell those people, those knuckleheads at the Young Turks, when they were Russiagating, I go, they're going to use this for a war. And that's exactly what they had. Oh, they knew they were doing that. They knew that they were getting people mentally ready for a war with Russia. And by this right now, it's a proxy war with Russia. That's what this is. And of course they did it. And of course, if you say something, they call you a Putin puppet, just like you were an Assad toady. If you said something, the truth about Syria, like Tulsi Gabbard was saying,
right.
Or if you said the truth, remember? I mean, if you said there weren't weapons of mass destruction, you were called a traitor. And
right.
The whole thing, it's the fucking never end. It's the
never
same
ends.
playbook, and people fall for it every time. And it's because we are the most propagandized country in the world. You think China is? When people in China watch the news, they know it's propaganda. In the old Soviet Union, people knew that was propaganda. The difference between that and now is people in America, they think they're watching the news when they turn on Fox, CNN, MSNBC. And isn't it weird? It never clicks to anybody that when Rachel Maddow and Sean Hannity are telling you the same thing about Ukraine, doesn't that something will go open? My spidey sense is like, oh, this is fucking bullshit. Yes, it is. Yes, when they're telling you the same thing about COVID or vaccines or lockdown, doesn't your spidey senses go up that this has got to be bullshit? So they all agree, again, just like the Republicans and Democrats, they all agree on the worst of things, right? They all agree on war. They all agree on screwing workers. They all agree on keeping us having the most expensive healthcare in the world. They all agree on not doing anything to fix homelessness and not investing in our own infrastructure. But so they agree on all the worst things. It's like having two divorced parents, but they both agree on sending you to military school.
Yeah, it's a conundrum for sure. But don't you think that more people are aware that it's bullshit than ever before?
I hope so. I think a lot. I think COVID woke up a lot of people.
I think it did too, and I think shows like yours and these shows that are online now that aren't beholden to a corporation, that are independent shows that can actually connect the dots with knowledgeable people that actually understand the history behind everything. It's just a different world now.
Even with YouTube, Joe, it's amazing how many people told the company line. They told the company around Ukraine war. They told the establishment line around COVID and vaccines and shamed anybody for. It was just amazing. I'm like, what the fuck is going? So there's only maybe a couple of places that. You can get reliable news, even in independent news, right?
Yeah.
The Gray Zone had to debunk everything, and the
Gray Zone.
Yeah, it's Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate.
Okay.
Yeah, and they'd help debunk Russiagate. They helped debunk the Syria gas attacks. Aaron Mate did extensive work on that. I was first, but I'm a dumb guy. I have to take credit where I can, And but how
did you debunk that?
I knew because Robert Fisk had done reporting on the ground. He was one of the most decorated war reporters in Europe, and it didn't make any sense on its face that Assad, who was winning the war at the time, would do the one thing Barack Obama said if he crossed that red line and used chemical weapons. He would then go do it, and they only killed like 50 people at a time with a chemical weapon. So why the fuck would he do that? Of course, that was a false flag done by, and then the OPCW. Whistleblower. So the OPCW, which is the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons, right? And so they used to be considered, nonpartisan and non-captured, and they would go in and if there was a chemical weapon used, they would go in and they would do a report. Well, of course, they got captured, right, by NATO and the billionaire class. And so they go in, they do their report, and they're like, oh yeah, it was Assad, he did it. But then the whistleblowers came out and said, no, that's not what happened. They suppressed the engineer's report. They suppressed this report. These canisters were laid there. This wasn't dropped from a helicopter. So it was all bullshit, right? So of course Assad didn't do that, right? And so I was onto that first, and then Aaron Mate came back, and he did meticulous reporting on it. He's written at least 10 articles on it, which nobody will ever debunk. Nobody, because they can't, right? Mm-hmm. And and Russiagate, I knew immediately Russiagate was bullshit because I brought on Bill Binney, who was NSA's number one code breaker for decades and decades. And he came on and he explained to me that they didn't hack into that DNC server that was downloaded locally, right? And now we know that How much shit they wrote a smear piece about me in the Washington Post because I was asking logical questions about what happened with Seth Rich.
Yeah.
Hey, where was he from the time he left the bar to the time he got home?
You're
It's like
not allowed to ask ethical questions about a guy that WikiLeaks said leaked them information that the DNC was conspiring to keep Bernie Sanders out of the primary. You're not allowed to.
I remember they wrote that Jeff Bezos hired a guy at the Washington Post to smear me over that, right? And they did.
I don't know if Jeff personally was involved.
And
don't you think Jeff's busy? I mean, it was his paper, but I mean, how much time do you think he's spending at his paper? Realistically,
why do you think he bought that paper? You think he bought that paper because he wants to inform people about what the billionaire class is up to, Joe?
It's super profitable.
It's not. It's not.
It makes billions of dollars a year.
No, in fact,
it does really well. It only tells the truth.
In fact, the head of the Washington Post went into the newsroom just as like a month ago, and I don't know how it got leaked out that he said, "Hey, nobody's reading your shit anymore. People are done with the corporate news. Hopefully,
yeah,
right? They're fine. Well, that's why you saw that." I can't think of her name. That idiot for the Washington Post who covers social media. She's the
Taylor Lorenz.
Yeah, the 40-year-old teenager.
Yeah.
And she did a TikTok about how I don't know people. You don't know what the people don't understand what the country's going to look like without there's these corporate journalists because they just fired like 10,000 of them. And I go, I know what the country's going to look like. I'm going to wake up every morning and an animated bluebird is going to land on my shoulder and we're all going to break out into song. Okay, yeah, because corporate news is fucking nothing but bullshit. Propaganda. We've known this forever.
Right. And
but people keep falling for it.
I think people don't think that independent news can replace it, but I 100% think it can. And I think it has more of a likelihood of doing that because if you can get independent journalists that now they can develop Substacks and podcasts and they can go and do things on their own and they get funded. They don't need anyone else anymore. So then they can tell the truth, right? So they're not beholden to some enormous corporation. If a podcast had a building like CNN's building in Atlanta, I'd start getting nervous. I'd be like, hey, how much overhead is this?
Yeah.
How are you guys paying the bills?
Right.
You got so many people working here and your show sucks. You have nobody watching and there's so many people. This is a fucking disaster. Like, what are you guys doing? They just closed their Atlanta building.
Did they?
Yeah. Yeah, of course they did. How do they have another building open? How do they have any buildings open?
I don't know how.
Imagine a show that gets a podcast that gets that few views, but has who knows how many hundreds of employees, giant buildings. They're on an airport, so you get 0 views. Nobody gives a fuck. I mean, it's a crazy business model.
And you look, and Don Lemon started his own YouTube channel, and
it's wonderful.
Nobody's watching.
It's wonderful.
So I got invited on that show.
Joe Scarborough talking.
So I got invited on that show, and I turned it down a few times, and my assistant is like, hey, look, they really want you to do the show. Yeah. And so I was talking to my friend Jackson Hinkle, and I said, yeah, Don Lemon keeps inviting me on the show. He goes, you got to go. And I'm like, it would just be me trying to insult him, you know? It would just be me saying how shitty he is and how he's the, because I had just gotten done doing a rant about Chris Cuomo talking about ivermectin, but still lying about it. And he goes, yeah, that would be fun to watch you do that. And I go, okay, I'll do it. So I told my assistant, I could tell him I'll do the show. So we set it up. And I go, just me. I go, I'm not going on with anyone else. I'm not having a debate with another asshole and Don Lemon. I go, I'll just go on with Don Lemon. And they agreed to it. And so the morning we were supposed to do the show, an hour show, just me, they canceled.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, why?
And I maybe because Don Lemon's like, oh, who am I interviewing today? And then he Googled me. He's like, no, we're not. No, we're not. And that was right when I did a video, calling out Chris Cuomo for being a lying piece of shit. That went kind of viral. And so,
all right. So Chris Cuomo probably called up. They probably talked. They're probably homies.
He probably saw that video.
Yeah.
He probably went to put in Jimmy Dore on Twitter, and that comes up.
Well, he should be if he wants to become successful. Being an independent person, he's going to have to engage in conversations with people he disagrees with.
He still calls the truth about COVID conspiracy theories.
Yeah, he's a fool.
He's a fool.
He's a genuine fool.
He's one of those guys. Ivermectin's horse paste. He's the lab theory is racist against Chinese people.
Well, not only that, he had a whole episode with Sanjay Gupta after Gupta came on here.
Admitted that they were lying about ivermectin, and then they tried to pretend that they weren't.
But it is horse medicine. It was used for human beings for 12 fucking years.
Before they ever used it for
veteran medicine. Don Lemon, you fucking moron. It's just so the idea that these talking heads who they had on CNN should be some sort of a moral compass and an ethical compass for the rest of us is so fucking stupid and so insulting, especially when you see these people on their own. So when you see these people on their own, like when you see Dave Smith debating Chris Cuomo and just fucking nuking him, and then you see Don Lemon doing his show, and you go, okay, this is who you guys are, for real, for real.
Yeah.
This is the real for real. When you see fucking Brian Stelter doing that WEF thing, hiking up his skirt for those lizard people. The whole thing is like, this is who you really were. This is you guys. And you surviving on your own in this independent platform, good luck, because this platform is transparent. They're going to see you for who you are. No producers, no fucking the scripts that you're going to read off of. That shit won't even work in this realm. It doesn't work.
So that's so I have this dream to produce a show that would compete with Bill Maher. Because I don't know if you've ever seen, I do live shows, right, with a panel and a live audience, right? So it's kind of like Bill Maher, but it's funny and it's accurate. So so that's why I'm like, and so I've been pitching it to Rumble. You know what Rumble is, right?
Sure.
And so thank God for Rumble, because I don't have to ever worry about being censored.
Right. Rumble's great.
They've been out in front on the free, like, we're not going to censor, say whatever the fuck you want. That's up to you.
I think they're great.
It's up to you and your audience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. And so I travel around the country and nobody's fucking heard of Rumble. I mean, except
more people have now than ever before.
People are starting, and so I tried to talk them in. They're like, "Hey, why don't you finance a show and a soundstage for me, and we could compete with Bill Maher, and instead of real time, we'll call it Rumble time, and we'll put a billboard up in Times Square and right across the street from where Bill does his fucking show, and this is it's be like a
good idea,
and they were on board, and but." I guess there was too much money. I don't know how much money they have. It wasn't that much. It's like I got it down to like $90,000 an episode for like a real thing that would look exactly as good as Bill Maher, which that costs a couple $1 million an episode.
And
right?
would you do it in front of an audience?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course. I've
like
got
your
the
shows,
studio,
like your stand-up shows.
Yeah. So I do those. I travel with that show. I do a video show hooked up to my computer, and it's kind of a mixture of the Daily Show and Bill Maher show. I have a panel and and we have the comedy, and it's
I've seen it. It's very funny.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That one thing about the Rachel Maddow lying 35 times.
Yeah, I love that, man.
Yeah. So I do that and I tour. I'm gonna the next time I'm doing it is in Chicago in August, right before the convention. I got press credentials.
Oh my God.
I can't. I shouldn't say anything. But
yeah, we probably shouldn't have told anybody.
I shouldn't have said anything, but I got them.
Well, you're a real journalist. You should get press credentials.
I was there in 2016. Of course, they didn't have any conventions in 2020 because of COVID, right? So, but 2016, I went to the Republican and the Democrat, and that's where I met Alex Jones.
That's hilarious. That video's hilarious.
It's hilarious in retrospect. It was, I guess, at the time too. But yeah, it's nice that we've made up and.
Yeah, the Alex Jones thing is strange.
It's amazing how right he is about shit.
He's right about
he's way
so
more accurate.
many
He's
things.
way more accurate than corporate news. That's for sure.
But he got that one thing wrong.
The one thing wrong.
One thing. Well, he's gotten other things wrong, but that one thing was a big one. And that
and they
one
set him
thing
up.
changed. Maybe they did. I mean, it could have been that they did. I mean, I do think that is something that does happen. One of the things when something happens is people, and then I don't know if it's human beings or if it's groups or if it's foreign groups, they will concoct a fake narrative and try to get people to share it. Like they'll try to fool people into sharing a fake version of some real thing that happened. And I think they do that to undermine people that are conspiracy theorists that are occasionally correct. So if you can get a conspiracy theorist who's occasionally correct and get them a bunch of bad information, foolish information, and convince them on a website, polls, get a bunch of people involved that also believe it. I think that's where Flat Earth got started. And you get all these people like sharing things and believing things. And then if this person, they take the bait and they'll go, this is what we're hearing. We're hearing this is a false flag. And then next thing you know, like, we got him. We got him. And if you're a guy like Alex Jones, who at the time was legitimately experiencing what you would call like a psychotic break. He was breaking. The guy was drinking like crazy. And, when you're uncovering real conspiracies all day long, every day, which is what he does.
Nothing seems crazy.
Everything seems
plausible.
Off the wall. The whole fucking world seems topsy-turvy. Nothing makes sense. He fucked up. But he's right so often. If you look at what CNN is fucked up on, how come they're not in trouble for the weapons of mass destruction shit? How come they're not in trouble for Russiagate? How come they're not in trouble for so many
Which fuck up do you think is bigger? The one that Hillary and Barack Obama did in Libya?
Yeah.
or Alex Jones?
Yeah.
Which one do you think is bigger and worse?
Yeah, one of them seems bigger.
Yeah.
But it's it's like the news. The news, when they were lying about certain things, how much damage did they do? Well, I've always said this, that imagine if the news people were skeptical about the vaccine. The news people were skeptical about not being able to use off-label medications at a doctor's discretion, especially ones that have been actually shown to stop viral replication in vitro. And there's a history of success in using these things in other countries, like Uttar Pradesh in India. There's a bunch of different things that were going on simultaneously, and yet they're still being stopped. Wouldn't the real news, imagine if the real news is like, hold on, it seems like there's special interests involved here, and there's a financial incentive to push this one thing, which is what they have to do in order to get the Emergency Use Authorization Act. There can't be any valid pharmaceutical drugs that are available currently that we could prescribe. That's the only way you can get some new thing to pass through. Imagine if that was the news and podcasters were like, it's safe and effective. It's safe. If you get it, you won't get sick. If you get it, you won't share it to anybody else. The virus stops with you. And then there's none, this talk about side effects. It's not true. It's not true. I've never seen a single person that had a bad reaction to this new experimental gene therapy. Imagine if it was the podcasters. We would all be in the news.
Yeah.
We would all be getting sued. They would use it to shut us down. That would be the misinformation that they would feed us to get us to say stupid shit so that we would endanger people's lives and ruin people's healths, and they would shut us down.
100%. I just, how are they not suspect of an industry that has immunity from lawsuits if their product harms people? Like, they're in the history of the humanity, that's the only one.
Yeah.
And well, why did they pass a law that? Well, because they're safe. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
That's not true.
If they were safe, you wouldn't need to fucking pass that law that gave them immunity from lawsuits.
Well, literally, when they were trying to figure out why they needed this, and they were saying, why don't you make vaccines safe? The literal explanation was, it is impossible to make them entirely safe.
So what you're saying is they're not entirely safe.
Well,
you're going to injure some people.
Almost all medications.
Of course.
If you give them to enough people, you're going to have side effects. And then when you have a new one, and then when you understand how they're allowed to do studies and how they're allowed to throw out all the studies that show it does harm or it doesn't work or it's not effective, and then you fucking finagle the numbers in a way that you can push it, I think we're going to see a real improvement here. And like, okay, run with it, go! And then the money starts rolling in.
But of course, yeah, and that's how they captured the news, because Bill Clinton let them in 1997. I think they passed a law that let Big Pharma. Now, most of the funding for news comes from
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Right? And so, of course, they get to. So they're not. So what I like to say is that when you see Boeing advertising on Meet the Press or Pfizer advertising on CNN, they're not funding the news organization's investigation. They're funding their non-investigation, right? They're like, but this is money so you don't fucking investigate us. That's exactly. And the people who do, like my friend Anita Krishna in Canada, she worked for I forget the name of the Global News or a big news network in Canada, and so she started to ask just regular questions that she got fired, and she videotaped her session where they fire her, like they, hey, why are you, she's like, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? We're a news organization. Aren't we supposed to be asking the questions why there's all these miscarriages that are happening at the hospital? Aren't we supposed to be asking about the explosion of cancer? Aren't we supposed to be asking these questions? Isn't that what we do as a news organization? And she got fired for that, of course.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so here's the latest thing.
But don't you think that this craziness is good for us?
Oh, yeah. Well, I wouldn't have a show if CNN and MSNBC.
Not just us, but us as a population, because it's so stupid that we get through it, and then more people wake up.
I hope so. Because
I think it's the only way we are going to really know who's pulling the strings.
I keep bumping into, I go to comedy clubs and
you live in L.A. That's the problem. You got to get out.
God.
Texas is a different world.
Is it really?
100%. Wait till you
The
come to
comedy
the show
community
tonight.
here?
Oh my goodness. You just wait, sir.
Really?
Yeah, you're in for a time of your life tonight. Yeah, it's wild out here.
All right, that's
It's wild. It's a
did
different world.
I did a set, like I said, I did a set at in Hollywood just last week, and the comedian after me called me an anti-vaxxer. I was like, "You're fucking kidding me!"
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
You're kidding.
What does that even mean? It's such a
What is
dumb.
that? I took the fucking vax, asshole.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Anyway, but there's this new thing, Joe. So I found out. So when I quit smoking pot, I couldn't sleep, and I thought I was going to die. It was,
Jesus.
But for some reason, I didn't go back. Because if you don't get sleep, it's the worst thing in the world. I would sleep for 2 hours. I would fall asleep and wake up.
Whoa.
And I was like, and so I was told about this thing called HGB.
HCG?
No, HGB. I guess it came to America in the 90s. I just did a video about it. And it's the ultimate sleep medicine. So the problem with the sleep medicines now is that they don't give you restorative sleep. They just kind of knock you out like an anesthetic, right? So when you wake up, you're still fucking groggy and tired, and you don't have all the shit that sleep does for you, right? That's the problem. But this wasn't patented, and it was easily made. You can compound it easily at compounding pharmacies, and bodybuilders used to use it.
Oh, yeah.
And then they said it was a date rape drug.
Yeah, GHB.
GHB, that's it.
They use it as treatment for narcolepsy.
Yes, so that's the only thing it's approved for now. You have to, only certain doctors can prescribe it. So this is what they did. So not only did it help you with sleep, restorative sleep, but it helped you with human growth hormone as you got older. It helped you with bone. It's almost like a miracle drug, kind of like ivermectin, right? And it's the same thing. In fact, I just read this.
It's very potent, right?
So
if you take too much of it, you get bonked out, right?
Well, I guess, hey, if you drink a keg of whiskey, it'll do the same thing. I would say take the right dose.
Yeah,
people said that to me. They go, if you take an overdose of it, it's bad. Well, then I would not take an overdose.
I think people drugged women with this before.
So this
is a date rape drug.
This is the propaganda, Joe. So I just read this article. There's this guy called a Midwestern Doctor. He's got this Substack. He's fucking awesome. Pierre Corey tweets him out all the time. And I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, actually. It's just called a Midwestern Doctor. And he did a deep dive into GHB. Yeah. That stuff. And that's how I know all about it.
Right.
And they did the same thing. In fact, in one of the subtitles of his article, it says they did the same thing to ivermectin. What they did to ivermectin, they did to this. And so they all got together and said, hey, this is a rape drug. Even though Rohypnol was the rape drug. It wasn't the
roofies.
Yeah,
right.
So the roofie. And guess which one got banned? This one, because it actually works.
So you can't get GHB?
You can still get the roofies because the people that made it lobbied the government to not get it made illegal. Isn't that fucking ironic?
Wow.
Yes.
What is Rufinol for? What's it?
Who
what's
knows?
Its legitimate use.
But I don't know. But that's what I read in that Midwestern Doctor's article, and he explains it all. It is mind blowing. And so I was trying to get some of this. Right, you can only get it underground. Right, so there's certain doctors that make it in certain parts of the country, and they give it to soldiers who have PTSD, and they do it. But if they get caught, they're in trouble because they made it a Schedule I drug.
Wow.
Yeah, cocaine Schedule II, right? So it's even worse. So, and I've asked my doctor for it. Like, I can't do that.
Wow.
I can't even tell you where to get it because I'll get in trouble. And so I found a guy who said he could get it for me, but I had to set up a proton mail, then I had to get Bitcoin, and I had to do this.
Jesus.
And by the time all that kind of came together, my sleep had come back. So now. So now I don't. But the gay guys would use it.
It says it's illegal. Rufinol.
It is.
Rufinol is illegal.
Oh, is it? It's sold in some countries as a
I'm saying it wrong. It's Rohypnol.
Rohypnol, yeah.
It's sold in some countries as a sleeping pill, but it's illegal in the United States because it can cause extreme drowsiness or blackouts, often used in date rapes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's illegal.
It's sold under the brand name Rohypnol.
Benzodiazepine. It's a benzo. Okay. And so this GHB, bodybuilders use it because it helps them recover. Is that the idea?
And it creates growth hormone.
Makes sense.
It does. It's great for people who are aging, and so now you can't get it. And
God damn it.
because they couldn't.
These motherfuckers.
Same thing with.
Someone needs to give that to Biden. Maybe it would help him.
Don't you love that? Don't you love the bullshit they would say about Chris Cuomo said this when he was talking to Dave Smith. He goes, "Well, the people who make ivermectin, they say it doesn't treat COVID. You know why? Because it's off patent, you fucking asshole, and they can't make money off it. So now anybody could make it, and it's pennies.
Yeah,
that's why. You don't know that, newsman.
Yeah. How the fuck did Dave Smith? No, I guess Dave Smith didn't know, but I mean, sitting next to that guy, how did he keep his cool? I wanted just Dave Smith was he's so level-headed while that was going on. I was like, how the fuck did Dave Smith not lose his fucking mind talking to that guy?
It's good that there was a live audience there.
Yeah, but in the live audience, it's like bullshit, bullshit, dude.
Yes.
And when you see him say, "I didn't do it, I didn't say that," and then there's a video clip of him saying
it.
How does he not know that?
And then he goes, well, he says that this was the information that we were being given. Yeah, and you're supposed to go out there and debunk the information you're being given by the government and Big Pharma. You're not just supposed to fucking repeat it.
If you just did one Google search of what is
that's
ivermectin.
It, he wouldn't do that.
That's all you had to do.
It doesn't take 5 minutes, it takes 30 seconds.
And you're like, oh, it won a Nobel Prize for the guy who
human
invented
medicine?
It?
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. It's one of the safest drug profiles ever observed. Oh. Ever.
Safer than Tylenol.
How crazy was it when Rolling Stone had that article about people
Rolling Stone's the worst.
Waiting in line at the emergency room for gunshot wounds because so many people were overdosing on horse medication.
And they were all wearing coats in August in Kentucky.
How are those people not in trouble? How are they not in trouble for that? Because how many people could have gotten ivermectin and gotten over COVID and didn't get it?
Well,
I'm not even saying that it works. Let's just saying some people think it works. Some people that are fucking doctors, like Pierre Corey.
It certainly works.
87 different. I mean, there's like a bunch of different randomized controlled trials that shows efficacy.
And that's another thing I learned is that the people who do the test, so the medical journals are also corrupted by Big Pharma.
Yeah.
And so what they'll do is we're going to do a study on ivermectin. Turns out it doesn't work. Well, you look, they do the study, they set it up to fail, right? They give it to a person a week after they already got sick. You're supposed to give it to them right away. They give it to them in way smaller doses than they're supposed to. And then they did one where they gave them to way higher doses.
That was
they were toxic.
hydroxychloroquine, right?
So they were doing with all. So that's what it's a fucking scam. So the medical field is just as bought by the same people as your corporate news is. So we're all walking around in a big propaganda fucking machine, and nobody knows it. They think they know, and they get so righteous, and they come. The
crazy thing is doctors buying into it, and when you realize that you can't trust them for medical advice, you're like, wait, what? When you have a doctor telling you that you should get vaccinated after you just got over being sick, and you were only sick for a couple of days, and you have two people that you know that had strokes from the vaccine, and you're like, wait, what?
Who gets vaccinated for a virus they already had and got over?
Nobody.
That's in the history of ever, right?
Yeah, nobody. My parents. But nobody else.
I knew people. I knew comedians, and that to me.
Oh, I know a bunch of comedians.
That was the heartbreak. The heartbreak. I was always so proud to be part of the comedy community or the brotherhood, whatever. You know, we it's a certain kind of thing, right? We talk in dark terms to each other. We say the most inappropriate shit to each other. But it just all flipped. I mean, some of my favorite comedians, some of my best friends, they just fucking went mental, and then they attacked me.
Yeah.
And
But
what?
They're not really your friends anymore. They're a bunch of narcissists that all live in this stupid bubble where they're trying to get validation from people by virtue signaling. That's all those people were, a bunch of cowards and weirdos, and they all turned on everybody. And they generally turned on people that are more successful than them. That's what that's what it's really all about, the heart of it. It's signaling to your tribe that you are compliant, you're a part of the group think, and then attacking the people that are above you that are doing more successfully. That are more successful with their career than you. That's all it was. And all the people that did it are all terrible comedians. They're all mediocre, sad, narcissists that wish they got more attention than they got. They think they didn't get what they deserve. They think they should be getting more. They're angry at people that are getting attention. They don't understand success of other people. And he's an anti-vaxxer. He's an anti-vaxxer. Oh, that's what's going on? That's why he's got millions of views? Is really that what it is?
Isn't it amazing that every day there's a new study? There's a new study from South Korea that just came out that said the vax there's a link between the COVID vax, and Alzheimer's, right? So, and nobody will talk about it. Where are the comedians coming out with the same people who always were debunking the COVID narrative are still there's no one's jumping on board.
It's just, I'm telling you, brother, it's just L.A.
Is it?
Yeah, you come to Texas. That green room's lit. We talk about everything.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's no political correctness. It died here. It's dead.
Really?
It's dead.
I thought it would
Doesn't
be red
exist.
hot in Austin.
No, Austin. Like my friend Brian Simpson has a brilliant joke about it, and I'm not going to quote it, but it's what he's essentially saying is that it appears that this is a liberal city because you're surrounded by red Texas. But the liberal here is regular liberal. It's like what we are,
yeah.
what you and I are, like regular, reasonable people who are kind, not like crazy, like
Narrative enforcing,
yeah,
fucking
babies should be
rigid.
trans, all that shit. That's not here. It's like this is a different version because it's so tempered. Like one of the things I always say about Austin is keep Austin weird and surrounded. So when people say weird is okay, but keep it weird and surrounded. You're surrounded by ranchers with guns. There's fucking hardworking people that aren't buying any bullshit because they get up at 5:30 in the morning to take care of their cows. Like they're not fucking around here, man. There's a different kind of people, and they're nice and they're informed. And that's the thing about this town that's different. It's like they're much more informed. You're gonna get your liberal loonies here. You get your people walking on the street with masks on. You get a lot of crazy shit here. You get your Free Palestine marches, and you get a lot of nutty people, but it's a more tempered environment. Like people are more reasonable. And
How about so there are comedians in Los Angeles who wear a mask into the green room. Mm-hmm. And then they take it off when they go on stage.
Right, they're all terrible. They're all terrible.
Do you think the coronavirus is respectful
Yes.
of stage time?
It is. No, it is. It's the lights. Those lights, they kill the virus.
So here's the one good thing. I'm talking about my dreams. Is so, I've had this happen more than once. I'll have a dream where one of my biggest haters, someone who attacks me on public and social media and stuff like that, I'll meet them in my dream. And I don't have any animosity, but what I can see in them is where their hatred for me comes from, and it comes from their pain and their insecurity, and a lot of time it's jealousy, like you were saying. And I can see it. And so I don't have any animosity towards them in my dream, and I have compassion for them. Having compassion for someone who hates you, I have that.
Yeah.
And then when I wake up, it doesn't go away. It stays with me. And it's like this gift from my unconscious, my transpersonal self, God. It's a gift.
Yeah.
And so it's like
That is a gift, too. It really is.
that where I literally have compassion for the people who hate me the most. What a fucking gift.
It's beautiful.
Because it'll eat
Yeah.
you up. It still, I'm not 100, you know me, I'm not 100%. It still bothers me sometimes.
Yeah.
But I've had a dream about that guy.
Yeah.
That guy I had a dream about him.
Yeah, that guy,
And his,
I'd give him a hug if I saw him. Despite he said awful things about me. He's just a sad man. Just a sad, pathetic man. And that's okay. That's your burden in this life. You're going to go to the grave as that guy, and everyone's going to know. And you're this irritant that's in the air. You're a fart that's in a locker room. You're a problem. And this is your choice. You've decided to be this very unpleasant, very anxiety-ridden, very mediocre artist who's out there yelling and screaming into the abyss on Twitter. Well, that's your burden. This is what you're going to have to go through your life with. And I don't envy you. And I'm not even mad at that guy.
No.
I feel sad.
yeah,
They wear that mask, bro. It's a fucking MAGA hat. That's a
Yes.
MAGA hat for Democrats.
It's unbelievable. And then I'll still see people today that choose to wear a mask and then they wear it under their nose.
Dude, that's my favorite.
Are you gotta be fucking...
It doesn't work anyway. If you want to be anti-science, wear a mask. That shit does not work, especially a surgical mask. Get the fuck out of here, you moron.
That's
It's so
surgical mask.
stupid. It's so stupid. You don't even know what a surgical mask is for. It's to keep particulates from people's mouths from dropping into wounds.
That's what it's for.
Yeah, it doesn't stop anything from respiratory, like a respiratory virus from going in.
They go. I've had people say, "Oh, why don't you go tell the doctors?" Because all the doctors wear masks. I go, "Yeah, in the operating room, so shit doesn't fall out of their mouth into an open wound. You know when they come over before you go into the operating room, the doctor comes over to talk to you." He takes his mask off and he talks to you. Remember that? They don't fucking have it on when they're... It's
so stupid.
It's so
It's so
stupid.
stupid. It's like, it's so childish, but yet it became official doctrine. Just like the 6-foot distance thing. It
Just
all
made
became
up.
a fictional.
And so, I want to say, we've seen Fauci lie to Rand Paul twice about funding the gain of function research, right?
Yeah.
Up and down the chain, people are saying, fuck, you mean the people you hired?
Yeah.
And so he lied to Congress twice at least about that, right? And then everything else he just lied about. But there will be no consequence. That's the thing that's unsatisfying. It's good just to watch them confront him, the congressmen that were confronting him. Isn't it interesting, though, that the same thing happened to him with AIDS, right? So if people forget, there's that movie called The Dallas Buyers Club.
Yes.
And Matthew McConaughey won the goddamn Oscar for that movie.
Yes.
And the bad guy in that movie, Dr. fucking Fauci. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, Matthew McConaughey knows that.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he say something?
I think he wants to keep working.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, you
that's
gotta keep
exactly
working.
it. You got to keep your head down. You can't go.
Yeah, if you go Woody Harrelson, people they automatically write hit pieces on you.
I love that guy.
I love that guy too. When he did that thing on Saturday Night Live, they started writing hit pieces on him immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're little lapdogs. But also, nobody believes those hit pieces. The people that read it, that hate Woody Harrelson, they already hated him. It's like you're not going to get those people back. You're going to have a certain amount of people that don't like you no matter what. So those hit pieces don't really work anymore. They just inform your haters that, oh, I'm on the right track. I knew he was a retard. That's all it is. It's just it's not real. The whole thing's not real, and everyone knows it's not real. When a guy goes on Saturday Night Live and has a funny monologue that's essentially realistic, you know, and it's about
that was so perfectly said.
Amazing.
Too.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And of course they attacked him. But that just, all that does really is show you where the demons are. Like, who's attacking him for that? Who are the people that have sold their soul? Who are the people that are willing to go after this guy for saying something that we all know to be true? You're going to go after him for that? Remember when they went after Eric Clapton? Oh my God. They went after him so hard. And Eric Clapton, who was vaccinated, who was vaccinated, had a horrible reaction to the vaccine.
He's a racist. They found some black guy who worked with him 20 years ago, said he was a racist. He's a racist. He's a racist.
Everything. They went after him. Anti-vaxxer, racist, responsible for the death of millions with his poor choice of words, describing his personal illness. But that's how transparent everything is. You know, obviously I experienced it. It's fascinating to watch it happen when they turn on you. It's weird. It's weird. Because for me, the weirdest thing about it was like the play was so stupid because I was obviously okay. I was obviously healthy really quickly.
Well, you did look green.
I should have filmed it because I worked out 6 days later. I did 10 rounds on the heavy bag because I wanted to find out if I felt good. And I felt fine. Wouldn't you be more interested in how someone got better if you really wanted the world to be a healthier place? You'd be like, what did that guy do that's different? He's just telling you what he did, and he got better and he wasn't vaccinated. So what did he do that's different? And wouldn't that be what the news wants? But no, when the news is controlled by giant corporations, that is an uncomfortable truth. That is a real problem, having that narrative out there that there's someone out there that can get healthy without taking this thing that we're telling everybody they have to take. But if it worked, why would you care if I took it if you took it?
Right.
Now, you can't get it. So but let me get sick. Let me be a dummy that just gets sick and recovers, which most people did. That's the other thing. They wanted to pretend that like 10% of the people were dying and the hospitals are overrun. No, it's like 99.7% of the people survived. And the people that didn't survive had
three comorbidities?
Four comorbidities. 4.
So, and then as soon as Bill Gates cashed in his stock,
he starts talking shit.
He starts shitting on the vax. Well, you know, we didn't know that it had a low fatality rate. The virus had a low fatality rate, and that the vaccine, it wasn't long lasting, and it didn't block transmission or contraction. And so we got to do better. We got this new thing. It's a nasal thing. He literally does that. We got this new thing, and this actually works better. I look into it. He's fucking funding that nasal thing.
Of course he is. Of course he is. I mean,
and now he's buying up all the farmland.
He's smart.
He's a megalomaniac. That's the thing.
He's also a guy that people don't realize at one point in time was very hated. He was hated
in the 90s because he was
antitrust.
Because he was monopolist and he knew how to crush people who had innovation and so they would throw pies in his face.
Yep.
And then he got smart and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to buy the media." And
yeah,
that's exactly.
He spent hundreds of millions of dollars buying media corporations off.
And so, like when you see PBS NewsHour do a thing on vaccines, it's being funded by Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And it's about a vaccine that he's invested in. And it's all, so he's funding the vaccine, he's funding the NGOs that's going to distribute it, he's funding funding the media coverage of the thing. It's like every which way he's got it. And so because he wears a crew neck and he looks like a nerd, people think nerds wouldn't lie.
Yeah.
That's why people think Chris Hayes on MSNBC, he's a nerd. He wouldn't lie. Rachel Maddow's a homosexuals. They don't lie. They're naturally good people.
Especially she's wearing a business suit. She's so serious.
Well,
she's a no-nonsense businessman.
I like to say she wears those fake Megyn Kelly eyelashes, and she wears.
Does she?
Yes, and then she wears jeans that are 3 times too big for her. Talk about
really?
someone in conflict.
Oh, does she really?
Oh, yeah. She wears the man jeans that are gigantic, and then she wears the Megyn Kelly eyelashes.
Interesting. The man jeans is an interesting choice.
Yes.
I wonder what that's saying.
That's someone in deep conflict with themselves. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's nice. But $100,000 a day smooths that over, I guess.
That's a lot of money. You could spend that in all sorts of fun ways. $100,000 a day? I think you can buy a Porsche a day.
And that was her reward.
How about that?
That was, wow.
One Porsche a day. Just have a 911 for every day of the week. It's worth lying. Go around the corner sideways. Wee! And listen to good tunes. Rod Stewart. Wake up, Maggie. Let's go. Driving down the Malibu coast. Sorry.
So that's the example. So they put Julian Assange in prison, right, in Belmarsh, and Rachel Maddow does Russiagate, lies about Ukraine, lies about Libya, lies about Syria, and she gets $100,000 a day.
I'm glad you brought up Julian Assange because what did he have to do to get free?
So he had to admit that he committed 1 felony.
But didn't he have to delete things?
Oh, he did. Turns out I didn't know. Yeah, it turns out they did delete some shit. It's like 20,000 documents or something.
Oh, that's only 20,000. It's no big deal.
But man, oh man,
what was it about?
Man, oh man, that guy. I mean, what a hero. Yeah. What an unbelievable, absolute hero.
I thought he was going to die.
I thought he was going to die in that prison, too.
What do you think happens to him now?
And it looks like they knew they were going to let him out because when they let him out, he had a little bit of weight on him. It looked like he wasn't as frail as he once was.
Oh, like they think they were feeding him good?
They looked like, hey, start sending him 3 meals a day, get him all the steak and everything. So when we let him go, he doesn't look horrible.
Oh, was he eating poorly before that?
Well, he was. I mean, I saw pictures of him. He looked horrible.
Yeah, he's not getting any vitamin D, right?
Right.
He's indoors all day long for 10 years. Like, how long was he in jail for? Or locked up?
So he was in that prison for 6 years, but he was in that embassy for, I think, 8 years before that or something like that.
God damn.
Yeah.
He was in prison for 6 years?
I'm pretty sure 6 years. So
Jamie will find out.
Didn't he go in, was it 2019?
It's 7.5 years total, but I don't...
7.5?
7.5 years of self-imposed confinement and then 5 years of enforced detention.
Okay. So 5 years in Belmar, 7.5 years in that Ecuadorian embassy.
Jesus Christ.
Where
that guy, how did he not go crazy?
I don't know how he didn't go crazy. And then they made him pay for his flight home.
$500,000.
$500,000.
Flew private though. Probably had champagne, strawberries.
Don't you think? Why wouldn't someone like Mark Cuban, who brags about he loves his jet collection? Like, why wouldn't he just send a jet over there to take care of him?
He's busy arguing with people on Twitter.
Oh, he's another fucking maniac.
Yeah, he likes arguing on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch.
And he's wrong about almost everything.
He's wrong about quite a bit. Rav Avora is this young kid who's a journalist who's really good. And he's gone back and forth with them to the point where Mark Cuban has to step out of the chat. He just gets clowned. It's just weird that a person that busy would choose to engage with people in the one of the poorest ways to communicate. Like to go back and forth in argument with people on Twitter. If you want to post things and, you have something that you feel like is on your mind, like, I'll post that. But when you start arguing with people on Twitter, like, I go, how much time do you have?
No kidding.
How do you have the time to do
Don't you
that?
own 85 million companies that you have to run?
It's like a sign of mental illness to be arguing with people all day on Twitter, in my opinion. I think when I see people arguing with people on Twitter, I'm like, oh, that's a person that's racked with anxiety. That's like a truly unhealthy person. There's no way you can't be. You're going back and forth with people. You feel it. You're a human being. If you're in conflict and you're trying to get one up on the person every fucking tweet, and you're checking your Twitter every 5 minutes to see who's responded and how it's doing. Did you get ratioed? Oh my God, I got ratioed. Fuck! Fuck. And then your wife's upset and your kid's, Daddy, can we play? Hold on. You're in the middle of tweeting. It's manic stuff. It's not good for you. It's bad for you. It's a bad way to communicate. The best way to communicate is civilly in front of a person. That's the best way. Even if you're yelling and screaming at a person right in front of you, that feels bad too. Like, you should be able to, as a grown adult, have a civil conversation with people where you could disagree with, even really disagree with something, but just keep like a professional, polite tone.
There's this. You know what's interesting? As I just interviewed this woman called Blair White. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I've had Blair on.
So I told her, I said, when.
Right-wing trans person.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
Right. So I have trans fans come to the show. Right. Kurt fucks them in the green room. But
whoa, how dare you?
Depending how they look, and they have guns. Like I've had a couple of trans fans come there and they're like, hey, you want to see my gun?
That's
and I was
hilarious.
like, no kidding.
That's hilarious.
So, but anyway, when I was talking to her, I was like, I feel like you're a woman. Like, I get the energy of a female from you, and whereas Dylan Mulvaney seems like a gay guy doing an unbelievable caricature of a woman.
Right.
And
agreed.
And she agreed, and she said, yeah, he has gay boy energy.
Yeah.
And so she went to these LGBTQ the pride parades, right? And she would ask people, how many genders do you think there are, and when do you think kids should be allowed to have gender affirming care and have hormones and stuff? So she's asking these questions, right, which we're all talking about,
right? And
she's doing it in a polite way. And the fucking way people turn, they had security following her. She basically got kicked out of the Pride Fest, and people are like, "Fuck you!" Like, they found out that she says to one guy, "What do you think about Donald Trump? He was the first president in the United States to go into the White House supporting gay marriage," and like, I never thought of it like that,
yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, you're a Trump supporter. Fuck you." I'm like, I always thought that the gay pride movement was about tolerance and diversity, and let me be my thing and you can do your thing. Now it's like, no, you're only allowed to have one opinion. You're only allowed to have one political view. And if you step outside, it's fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it? That's the opposite of what I thought the gay movement was all about.
Well, it's the opposite of what the progressive movement's supposed to be all about. The progressive movement is also supposed to be about intelligent, well-educated, compassionate people that have a better perspective of how things are and what causes people to live in unfortunate circumstances, and the inefficiencies of so many government organizations, and the importance of the working class community. That's what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about being kind and helping people and supporting workers and rights and all those things. That's what it originally was. But the problem is, with any ideology, if you have to have a rigid adherence to whatever the ideology states, whatever the doctrine is, that can shift to the point where it's no longer even a progressive value, and you call yourself a progressive, yet you support all these ideas. Like, you support the war in Ukraine. You support all these different things.
Censorship.
That are fucking insane. Censorship,
so
the FBI.
The hallmark of authoritarian dictators is censorship.
Yes.
And they got people who consider themselves progressive to be for. So, like I say, I've never changed. I'm for bodily autonomy, my body, my choice, which you don't hear people say anymore. What they'll say is, "Oh, I'm pro-abortion." No,
you say I'm a woman's right to choose. Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, well, that's what people like to say the most.
Okay, I've heard people start saying they're pro-abortion. No one's pro-abortion.
Well,
but anyway, so I've stayed my body, my choice, bodily autonomy. I'm anti-war. I'm pro-worker, and I'm anti-censorship for free speech. Those are all considered right-wing positions now.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
But it just shows you that what we're talking about, it's just the ideology. It's just a cult. And there's two cults in this country. There's the right-wing cult and the left-wing cult. And there's a bunch of people that are centrists. There's a bunch of people that have like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and they're kind of in the middle. And they're kind of like a left-leaning conservative or a right-leaning progressive, and they're confused, and they don't know what to think. And I think the majority of people are kind of really, if you isolated them and get them out of their tribal thinking, the way they look at the world, and if it could be explained to them in a kind way, most people are in the center. Most people. I generally think most people are. But the people on the far left are so fucking crazy, and the people that are on the far right are so fucking crazy, that if you're on the left, you see the people on the far right, well, I'm not that fucking person, so I must be on the left. And then if you're on the right and you go, yeah, but I'm kind of like pretty open-minded when it comes to a lot of social issues, but then you see Antifa, you go, well, what the fuck? I'm not with those people. I must be right-wing. And then you have this chaos that
So,
we have currently.
The whole left, I don't call them, people go, oh, the far left. I just call them Democrats, right? Because that's not left if you're for war. It's not left if you're for censorship. It's
Right.
not left if you're for mandating experimental medical treatments.
Right.
There's nothing left about that, right?
Right.
You just vote Democrat. And these are two bullshit constructs, being left, right. I don't think it matters that much. I've got way more in common with people who are considered right wing than I do with Joe fucking Biden.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing is that people don't realize when they say I told you this before, when people say, oh, we have to organize along class lines, that means organizing with Trumpers. The workers. That's what Christian Smalls did on Staten Island when he organized the first union in Amazon, right? He didn't go down there and go, hey, who here is for LGBTQ? Hey, who here is a gun nut? You're out. Who's not? Who's for freedom of speech? You're out. He just went, who's here to get together? We have an economic interest to oppose the man. You with me? That's how you fucking organize. You come around and you don't have all these things that exclude. It's all about excluding people. And by the way, I found out that all this trans stuff, it's all come from the top down. It doesn't come from the bottom up. I figured this out when I saw that Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, talk about enforcing ESG and DEI. And so that's because those companies are the ones who are raping the planet and screwing everybody. But then they stick a gay pride flag on what they're doing so they can wrap themselves in a patina of virtue. And that's all that is. And that's coming. And it's also great because it keeps us divided. So if we're fighting over bathrooms and people competing in sports and swimming and all that, then our eyes off the ball.
Right.
Our eyes off the $200 or $600 billion they're sending to the military-industrial complex in an upward transfer of wealth. We're not talking about the CARES Act, the largest. We're not talking about things that actually matter, that people are still living under bridges. People don't have health care that doesn't bankrupt them. People can't go bankrupt just trying to go to college. People don't have a decent, 80% of workers living paycheck to paycheck. Half the country can't afford a $500 emergency. All that shit. We're not talking about any of that stuff if we're talking about all that other stuff.
Exactly. And that's part of the playbook. The playbook is keep the people distracted and divided. That's always been the playbook. And then while we're in the middle of these international conflicts that are baffling to everybody involved, and you're wondering how they have all this money to do that, but they don't have any money to address all the problems that we have. How about the people in Maui? Imagine being a person in Maui that lost your home. They give you $700, and then you still can't rebuild. It's a year later, nothing's been built.
And at the blink of an eye, they give $100 billion to Zelensky. And
well, even worse, they accidentally sent Ukraine $6 billion. They sent an accidental $6 billion. So then we looked up, how much would it cost to rebuild every house that got destroyed in the fire? $5 billion. So they could have done that.
So why wouldn't they do that?
Why wouldn't they do that?
Why
wouldn't they do that? I don't understand. Those people are devastated. And then there's all this talk about taking over that land.
Well, you go to Maui. I was in Maui, and you see people have put graffiti on the side of buildings saying this is a land grab.
Yeah.
You see that a lot.
It is a land grab. It's a pretty transparent land grab.
Right?
It's happening in front of our eyes, and no one's doing anything about it because it's 5 hours in a jet across the ocean. And we're watching this shit take place where these people, and first of all, just horrible mismanagement of water rights, horrible mismanagement of power lines. The fact that they have horrible winds, crazy winds there, and they've had these fucking power lines that are above ground. When I lived in California, my fucking lines were underground. They figured it out there. How come they didn't figure it out in Hawaii? You know how much money could have been saved? They just put the power lines underground?
It was so unfortunate that their alarm system malfunctioned.
Yeah, how about that?
And that the water got turned off, so the firefighters...
They wouldn't let them turn the water on.
It was
the water's a very valuable commodity there. The whole thing is fucking insane.
And that the cops are turning people back into the fire. It's just these
the whole thing is insane.
These are all just unfortunate. These unfortunate things.
Well, how about that mayor who goes on TV 2 weeks after the fires, talks about how they're gonna try to figure out how to turn it into a monument?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't see that.
You ever see that speech?
No.
Was it the mayor or the governor? I forget which guy it was, but he was talking about how they're talking about erecting a monument. And turning it into a park or something. It's super valuable land where these people are.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yes.
That everybody recognizes these people have these modest homes on this super valuable piece of land. And if something should happen, whoopsies. If that whoopsies happens, and then they can figure out a way to take it.
Have you ever seen a fire that melted the wheels off of cars and
It does. I mean, fires do that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, extreme heat is fucking insane what it does to cars. And also cars are filled with oil and gasoline. The kind of heat that you get off of a burning vehicle is extraordinary. You know, when you're like, fires are one thing, like a wood fire, but a fire of a car that's filled with 30 gallons of gas and has rubber tires, like that heat is fucking extraordinary.
Yeah,
Extraordinary.
I don't believe you.
I mean, fire can do wild things, man. It really can, but the real problem is how they handled everything. It's so poorly done. By the way, they've had wildfires there commonly because of the fact that they have, like, see, there's
Yeah.
This is Tennessee.
yeah,
It's just
liquid
showing
aluminum, so the wheels melt. So that's all liquid aluminum.
Oh,
That's the
really?
wheels melting. Yeah.
All right, so now I believe you.
Yeah, fire from gasoline and everything in a car is made out of plastic. Think about if you have vinyl seats and plastic grommets and all these different plastic pieces that are on your sides, you know, your A columns and all this. All that's plastic. The fucking steering wheel's plastic.
Yeah.
The dashboard's plastic.
Yeah.
All that shit goes up, and bro, you better get the fuck out of the way. And 30 gallons of gasoline, like that's heat, man. That
Okay.
melts everything. Melts mufflers, melts everything. Anything aluminum is fucked.
So, So there's no way to vote our way out of these problems. It doesn't seem like in America that we're at this.
What do you think we could do? What do you think is the real solution to try to get us on the right path? What is the thing that can be done?
I think there has to be like you say, there's an awakening of people realizing that they're being screwed over by a billionaire class. It's international, right? Like, so the border being open. So that's not only happening in America, that's also happening in Europe, right? You've seen that, and you see what's happening to London, France, what they're doing in Scotland, places like that. And
Yep.
And Poland said no, right? They closed their border. But I think this is some kind of bigger plan to, and so I think if people wake up to that, which I think they are starting to, it's going to look, it looks something like the trucker protests in Canada, eh?
You always say AF in Canada every time? It's
Yes.
like that tick?
I think it's going to look like something like that. That we have to have a way to we got to make, like January 6th, which was, a frickin' instigated by the FBI. We know that. Did you see the guy who was the congressman? He was interviewing the head, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI. And he said, did you have any FBI assets inside the Capitol before the breach dressed up like MAGA people? And he says, I can't answer that. And the congressman goes, the answer should be no. It should be no. So what? So again, and so that was an attempt to criminalize Trump and criminalize his political movement. The same grand jury, the same RICO statute that they used to indict Donald Trump in Atlanta, they used to also, same RICO statute, same grand jury to indict the Stop Cop City protesters. And, when I made that case to Cornel West, I go, do you see the game that's being played now? Because then they're not only criminalizing their political opponents in the United States, they're doing that all around the world. They did that in Pakistan. So Imran Khan, the guy who stood up and said, people of Pakistan do not want to go along with NATO's wars anymore, he immediately threw him in jail. Now he's a criminal. They did the same thing they did in Brazil. They didn't want Lula to be president, so they threw him in jail, right? And so they thought the center-right guy was going to win. But then the far-right guy, Bolsonaro, won, the Trump of Brazil. They're like, oh, fuck, what do we do? So they had to let Lula back out of prison because he's the only one who could beat him. And then once they beat him, they then made it illegal for Bolsonaro to ever run for president again. And it's the same shit they're doing.
How did they make it illegal for Bolsonaro to not run for president again?
It's like they're trying to do to Trump right now. Give the 4 different 92 felony. So they bullshit charges against him. I don't know the ins and outs. I know they did. that. So that's what. So I think people need to wake up to that. And wake up to if anybody catches on fire and that it is a problem for the establishment, they criminal. Look what they did to the goddamn Russell Brand, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
So immediately, if you get a voice and you become a problem for the establishment, that's the new game. They just criminalize you now, and everybody goes along with it. Can you believe how people go along with They say that what they are currently doing to Donald Trump, they say he's going to do that to us.
Yeah.
But you're already fucking doing it. We've already, this whole idea that somehow isn't that kind of mind blowing? How do people not, Andrew Cuomo was on the Bill Maher show, and he admitted that they should have never brought that case, and that if he was the attorney general, he would have never did it. And the only reason that case was ever brought was because it was Donald Trump was the center of it.
This is how dumb they are. They went after that guy, Andrew Cuomo, which if you were going to be strategic about who is your tough guy Democrat that could be president,
why would they?
It's that guy.
Yeah.
Andrew Cuomo.
They gave him an Emmy for his bullshit coverage of COVID.
Yeah, hilarious.
And they took it away.
But listen, he's not a virologist. He's acting on a bunch of different experts that are telling him what to do, including letting people that have COVID back into nursing homes, which turns out to be devastating. And then also the use of ventilators, which they thought was important. We thought we needed a bunch of them. Turns out it killed people.
Yeah.
It killed some bizarre number.
So
like 80% of the people they put on ventilators wound up dying.
Yeah.
So
and then they would give you drugs that slowed down your breathing.
But my point is, if that doesn't happen, that guy's your guy against Trump.
Yeah.
That guy's your guy. I mean, that's a big, tough guy who speaks well. He's charismatic. This big Italian guy who's going to lay it. I mean, great speaker. You heard him on Bill Maher. I'm like, boy, if it wasn't for this one scandal of him liking to hug ladies.
We just, I'm Italian.
He is.
I like the, we play little grab ass.
Yeah,
it was a big deal.
Listen,
Come on.
Bo, Joe Biden has been, is that your phone that keeps dinging? Joe Biden has been sniffing kids and hugging people forever.
Jesus Christ.
Maybe it's me.
No, it's me.
Is it? Okay. Sorry. I mean, he's a fucking weird guy. And they just decided for whatever reason that they were going to take Cuomo out. And I never understood that strategic move. I mean, it must have been some sort of an inside power grab play. But then they replaced him with that Hochul lady who's out of her fucking mind. God has brought us this vaccine. This vaccine's brought by God. Like, what are you even fucking talking about?
And then she fired 100,000 healthcare workers.
How about when she said that black people don't know what a computer is?
Know what a computer is.
How crazy is that?
Yeah.
How crazy is that to even say?
Imagine anyone else. So that's how you know how corrupt the media is, because they didn't make a big deal out of that.
No, everybody was like, "What the fuck did you just?" Did you see the memes or the videos that kids made?
No.
Oh my God, so many funny videos of black kids moving around a computer like confused, like a caveman, like look at they see the computer.
I didn't see that.
Open it up.
Well, I mean, your phone is a computer.
Oh, dude, everyone knows what a fucking computer is. It's 2024.
That's like Joe Biden in the primary in 2020. Play the record player. They need to hear words. Turn on the TV. Don't.
The idea that poor black people don't have a laptop. What the fuck are you talking about? Everyone's online, you moron. Everyone. Literally, the whole country's online.
Did you see the mayor of New York? He said that. So they're trying to get these immigrants jobs, and he's like, "Well, a lot of them are real good swimmers. You didn't see that?
Yeah, I did see that.
Oh yeah,
insane.
It's like when you
want
to
be lifeguards.
When you want to call them wetbacks, but you want to be politically correct.
Jesus
that's
Christ.
What that was.
It's so crazy. The whole thing is so crazy. It's so crazy to watch all the gaslighting and chaos. And
well, it's also amazing to see that the Democratic Party is now the establishment party.
Yeah.
And it used to be the other way. The Democratic Party used to be the party that represented workers and was against the billionaire class. But then Bill Clinton and Al Gore, no friend of the working man, they saw Reagan. They're like, hey, if you can't beat him, join him. And so they decided, like, hey, they said, Wall Street, we got it. Give us the money, military. Give it. They started a thing called the Democratic Leadership Council, the DLC. Do you know who was on the board of the DLC? Koch brothers. They were on the fucking board.
Well, they want the world to be a better place too.
And so and so they just want to help people. That's what it's about.
That's all it's
They want
about.
to bring democracy.
That's what I've been saying. I'm glad you came around.
Thank you.
That's why I brought you here. I brought you here to educate you.
Yeah.
I'm an educator.
Breaking. President Biden says on a conference call he's staying in.
Yes. I'm running. I am the leader of the Democratic Party. No one is pushing me out. I've been knocked down before and counted out my whole life. When you get knocked down, you get back up.
Oh, I think I bet my phone was lighting up.
I like his moxie. I like it.
I've been told by I have a billionaire friend who's like a donor. They go, hey, they had a big donor meeting in Denver, like 40 of the top Democratic donors, and they said, who here wants to get rid of Joe Biden? And every hand went up. So
I think Jill Biden is a secret Trump fan. That's what I think. And I think she knows the way to get Trump back in the White House and straighten this country out is to keep her husband, Joe Biden, running. There's no way she thinks he's okay. So something's going on. Why? What? Like conspiratorially, pretend to be Kurt Metzger for a moment. And what do you think? Like, if you had to say, why would she want him in? You would say, well, because she thinks maybe he can win, even though he's demented, and maybe she can stay in power, but also maybe he doesn't get prosecuted. So this is my question about the recent Supreme Court ruling about the presidential immunity. If I was in the Democratic Party and I looked at what's going on with Donald Trump, and I looked at the very real possibility that Donald Trump might get back into the White House, I would say, listen, all this Burisma stuff, all this is big time shit. There's a lot of evidence, not a little bit of evidence like the Trump thing, not 34 charges of felonies, which is just a misdemeanor. That's just 34 different checks he wrote for a porn star, which is what a cheap bastard. He paid her over 34 different times, like in payments. I'll give you installments. I'll give her installments. A little bit here, a little bit there. She doesn't get it all in one lump.
Well, did you ever see the video of how Bill Clinton paid off Paula Jones back when he was running for president? And
when she had a she had the big check. Remember she had the big check that she won a game show?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was $850,000 he paid her off.
Right. And back then.
And they admitted it. They go, hey, okay, now this is over. We paid her off.
Yep.
How?
Well, the thing was like writing it down on a ledger as a campaign fund.
Yeah.
That's but that in normal cases, as Andrew Cuomo said on Bill Maher's show, that's just
That's it. You get a fine.
I'm telling you, they fucked up with that Cuomo guy. That guy could have been the president, and he'd probably be a good president. He was a good mayor. I mean, he's a good governor. Like, wasn't he? He's better than Hochul, right?
I mean, I don't know.
Everybody loved him at the beginning of COVID.
They loved him.
Yeah. You know, Chelsea Handler was saying she's Cuomo-sexual.
Yeah, remember that?
Remember that?
Cuomo-sexual.
Everybody loved him. Everybody loved him because he was the stern, like straightforward, practical,
he was the anti-Trump leader, right?
Yeah, he was a leader. He seemed like a leader. Big, handsome guy. He speaks very well. He also seems like a mob boss. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, he'll take care of it. Mr. Cuomo. Mr. Cuomo's got it all under control. They fucked up like that. You have so few charismatic people that that are experienced in politics that could have actually gone against Trump. That was the main guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I was hoping for it because the guy who does the voices on my show, Mike McRae, he does an Andrew Cuomo.
Does he do a good one?
He does a very funny one. Yeah.
I like when you have people call in that aren't the people, and a lot of people are like, what?
People think it's him.
Yeah, who do you have call in? Like, what different people?
Well, the first time I had Bill O'Reilly call in, people at KPFK were like, and they go, Bill O'Reilly just called someone a whore. And I'm like, no, that's... So it was that. He did an amazing Mitt Romney. He was hoping for Mitt Romney to get elected.
Remember when Howard Stern had that guy that would call in as Letterman? And it was dead on.
Oh, and I never listened to Howard Stern.
Oh, my God. Howard Stern used to have this Letterman guy would call in dead on.
Oh, really?
Dead on. Just saying wild shit. And he would say it was David Letterman. Oh, David Letterman's on the phone.
That's what I do. I just pretend. Oh, Mike also does Jeff Bridges.
Really?
Who does Jeff Bridges?
That's a weird one.
Hey, I can't do it.
Right.
I can't do it. He's like, far out, man.
Oh, he does Jeff Bridges as Lebowski?
Yeah. It's
one of the greatest movies of all time.
All time. And he does him. Who else does he do that nobody else does? He does a great Kevin Spacey.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's fucking... Everything he says is like that. That's right. Tell me about your lesbian niece. Anyway, it's... so he does he's brilliant. So he was hoping for Mitt Romney because nobody else did Mitt Romney.
Did you see the contrast between the debate in 2012 with Barack Obama and Mitt Romney? And somebody put a side-by-side video. No. Just the way they spoke with each other. There's a video that shows the contrast between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama speaking so cordially and professionally and graciously to each other in 2012, and then 2024 with Trump and Biden going at each other. And he's like, "You're a sucker. You're a loser."
Yeah.
You know, and then he's like, "He can't play golf. He's got no golf game. I'm 6 handicap."
He goes, "I have a 6
handicap." But that's how wild that dude is. And then he changed it to
and then immediately goes, "It was an 8." Like, you just switched it?
He's a bullshit artist.
And the worst. But I love when Trump says to you, "Let's not be children here." Like, holy shit!
Yeah. It's hilarious. Here, I'll play golf with you, but you gotta carry your own bags. Like, do you think you can carry your own bags? You can't walk down a fucking flight of stairs. This is crazy.
You can't even carry your own load in your pants.
It's just what a wild time.
Do you think
man.
he shit himself? People were saying he shit himself when he was with Macron. Remember, he bent over.
Perhaps. Maybe he was preventing himself. I've shit myself before. Things happen. Things go wrong. Things go wrong.
That's what I say about Mitch McConnell. People go, "You see him have a stroke?" I go, "No, he shit his pants. Look at his face. I know that face. I've made that face."
The Mitch McConnell one? I think he Windows 95.
Yeah.
I think he locked up.
Yeah, he clicked.
Someone needed to Control Alt Delete.
Yeah.
That poor guy. All those people. There's like, you shouldn't,
we have the oldest fucking people.
So old.
Why?
Well, because the young people are all, there's all a bunch of ex-girlfriends and ex-husbands out there that are talking shit about them, and they're terrified to run. And if they have real leadership qualities, they probably have a bunch of disgruntled former employees and a bunch of people they can call upon. They can make up stories. They can concoct narratives. If you're not chosen to be in that position, you want to buck the system. That's what we're seeing with Trump. They come for you. They come for you in very, very...
Look how they came for RFK Jr.
Yep.
Look at that, and they're still doing it. They just brought up a thing about a nanny from the late 90s. Did you see that? It was like yesterday.
Didn't see it. No.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about RFK Jr. They don't think he can win right now. What does it say?
I was looking up a Biden farting or shitting himself and found this story I never heard.
What does it say? Joe Biden or the new Mr. Trump? Camilla hasn't stopped talking about hearing the president break wind during the chat at COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow.
Right here.
So Biden farted himself?
It was a long and
impossible
loud
to
and
ignore.
Impossible to ignore.
Camilla hasn't stopped talking about it. That Biden just farts.
Farted in the middle of a meeting, yeah.
He produced a little natural gas of his own at the COP26 summit. It was audible enough to make the Duchess of Cornwall blush. But is this the Daily Mail? Yeah, they can just kind of say things, can't they?
Oh, okay.
Over there, they can just kind of say things. That's why.
From Politico. And then
Oh, they say it too?
They were reporting their report.
Oh, my goodness. Maybe it is true. Let's go with it. Old people fart. It happens.
Yeah.
That guy's not in control of anything. You think he's in control of his farts?
So do you think someone messed up and gave Joe Biden the real vaccine?
I don't think that's what happened. I think he's dying.
Okay.
I mean, he had two brain surgeries.
Yeah.
He had a brain surgery where they literally cut the top of your head off. He had aneurysms. Like he had like.
Look, I just told you the study from South Korea. Like it helped.
The Alzheimer's thing.
Yeah, it spurs it on.
I mean, I don't think any of that stuff's going to help. I mean, but I think he was already in a deteriorating state.
Yeah, he was, definitely.
Period.
So I saw this guy, Dr. John Campbell.
Sure.
So
yeah, he's great.
He says, although he pretends I don't exist, he won't respond to me.
What do you mean?
He won't come on my show. He won't talk to me. He won't.
Wonder why?
I don't. He goes on everybody else's show, but
That's bizarre.
including Russell Brand. I'm like, what? But he just the other day I saw a video. I tweeted it out that he says he thinks he has Lewy body disorder, which is what I think Robin Williams.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And he talks about all the different things and people will mistake it for Alzheimer's and they'll mistake it for Parkinson's but it's really this Lewy body disorder thing. So
he might be right. He's been right through the entire pandemic. Very reasonable and very right when he's talking about.
But once he realized that it was a lie.
Yeah.
And then he's like, he got duped. Mm-hmm. It's like all these people, like even like Pierre Corey's like, I didn't realize how corrupt the medical field is and how they control the medical journals and they can just make a study that will disprove a drug is good and they'll just do it wrong, say it's bad. Yeah. And so, he found this out through COVID too, that like, wow, the medical journals are all corrupt.
And what were we saying that he thinks that Biden has Lewy body dementia?
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just shocking that he can say that. I'm not going anywhere. You get knocked down, you get back up. Like, there's no one has the ability.
No one knocked you down.
But no one has the ability. That's what's crazy. No one has the ability in the Democratic Party to pull him aside and say it's over. Like, who would be that person? This is the question.
Obama, right?
Yeah, why
Obama was the one who got everybody to drop out in the primary in 2020.
Right.
Except for Elizabeth Warren, so they could split the vote of Bernie.
Right.
So I think it's Obama.
So why wouldn't Obama have that power over him now? You think once he's president, he's like, I'm president, God damn it.
I think he's getting replaced. I think he's
Still?
I think he's getting replaced. I don't care what he says.
But do you think there's a possibility that they would?
Of course there is.
Someone, I think, possibly.
If
I
they
mean,
needed to,
you could assassinate him with a balloon. I mean, you don't. You don't.
you
have
could
to,
assassinate him with a mosquito bite.
Yeah, you don't have
kidding
to
me?
try hard.
Scary movie. And he's
Kamala
dead.
Harris overtakes Joe Biden as the favorite to be the
it
Democratic
is.
candidate.
It's like a betting site though, so like she became the top odds. for
Well, bro, if
bets.
you want Trump to win again, I would have her.
Yeah.
Her run against Trump. What we know about what has been and what will be, based on what we know about what has already existed. This time that we're living in, and time is time just passes by.
What
It's just
can be unburdened by what has been? What
And the crazy thing
the
is,
same hand
she
movement
said
every
it
time.
more than once.
Yeah, she said it a million
Like she
times.
didn't even tighten it up.
And then she does it with like different takes. Like, okay, give me a different take. What can be unburdened by what has been? Like she'll still do it like you're doing a read, like you're doing a fucking audition. It's like, what can be? What is it? And then she'll do it. And then she'll do it laughing. Give me one laughing.
Oh my God.
Give me one where you're about to cry.
It really
give
is
Give me one where you're
idiocracy.
be overly sincere. Give me one where you're just throw it away. Throw it away.
Have you watched Idiocracy recently?
I haven't watched it.
It's like a
No.
documentary.
It's what
Watch it again. Watch it now, and you're like, oh my God.
I just so wish that George Carlin was still alive
Yeah, that would have been
because
fun.
he was getting more cantankerous.
Oh yeah, he would have went crazy. They would have killed him. They maybe killed him anyway. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe we still have him. The government saw it coming. What time? When did he die? 2018, I believe.
And how about I don't know, but how about how it's because the media is controlled that nobody cares that Jeffrey Epstein's list.
2008. Oh, it was off by 10 years. Wow.
He was only 71.
Yeah. See, they killed him. Told you.
Well, if you see
He looked
the
like shit, right?
if you but he had a lot of heart attacks. He did a lot of
He
coke.
did a lot of pills too.
Yeah.
Remember, there was a few years back where even in his elder years, he went to rehab for pills.
71 does not seem that old, right? Especially now that
No.
Wow.
It's 14 years older than me.
Yeah, I can't do the math, but
Yeah. Drinking 20 beers a day. In 1973, he says he was smoking joints before breakfast, drinking 20 beers a day, and sharing a heavy cocaine habit with Brenda, a freelance talent coordinator for Hollywood production companies.
wow.
Yeah, he was going hard, so he blew his ticker out.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah,
There's a
well,
lot of the greats that way.
and if you see, I saw the one person show his daughter did about him.
Yeah.
And she talks about how his last special, when she walked into the green room and he turned around, it was like he had aged 10 years from the last time she had seen him. And he looked like this old man, and he was shorter, and he was bent over. And yeah, he did seem like Biden, how Biden aged like that. It seemed like that happened with him.
Well, everybody that I know that did heavy coke in the 70s, by the time the 90s rolled around, they were fucked.
Yeah?
They were fucked. Yeah. Mitzi, allegedly, God rest her soul.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she used to like to party. And, so many others. Richard Pryor, of course, loved cocaine. And, by the end, he was
I saw him
very
right at the end.
deteriorated.
He used to go up at the Comedy Store.
I worked with him.
Yeah?
If you saw him at the Comedy Store, you probably saw me open for him. Excuse me going after him, rather. I used to have to bomb going after him. He also weathered serious tax problems, a heart attack, and 2 open heart surgeries. Jesus Christ. His health problems cost him 5 years of productivity between 77 and 82. Oh, wow. Even back
No
then.
kidding.
He was having heart attacks in 77? Though he had been able to taper his cocaine use on his own, he said he continued to abuse alcohol and also became addicted to Vicodin.
Oh, that's hard. on him.
2004, he entered a rehabilitation center.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was.
So if he died, that was 4 years before he died.
Yeah.
He went into rehab for Vicodin.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was probably in bad shape.
Wow.
Sucks that so many of those greats just get hooked on these
I
terrible
was so lucky to
things.
dodge that bullet. When I was sick and I was going through my bone disease, I used to have to take a handful of Vicodin just to get out of bed.
Oof.
I'd have to set my alarm for like a half hour before I had to get out of bed, and then take them and then wait for them to kick in so I could get out of bed.
God
it was
damn.
tough, but I didn't get addicted. And then the only thing I ever got addicted to was cigarettes.
Wow. That's crazy.
And when I was younger before I became a comedian, I used to drink gin. Oh, it was just drinking it. we'd finish off a bottle. You know, I mean, it was crazy. I can't believe I didn't become an alcoholic. I mean, maybe people would say you were back then, but I just drank on the weekends.
And then you just stopped.
And then, when I became a comedian, I was like, oh, that was. I pretty much stopped because I didn't want to go on stage drunk.
Right.
And whereas now, I like to have 1 or 2 drinks before I go on stage.
Loosen you up a little bit.
I become a different. It takes away a little bit of a censor.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like I'll do 2 shows, and so the first show sober, and then the second show, I remember I was in Chicago doing a live show with the video, and the second show I was a little hammered, and it was a totally different show.
More fun, right?
It was more fun.
Yeah, there you go.
It was. I was like, wow.
Yeah, alcohol has its place. It just doesn't have its place for everybody, and it doesn't have its place if you're using it every day. It's just like everything else.
Yeah.
I got to wrap this up and bring it home. Jimmy, you're a fucking gem. You're a gem of a human being. I appreciate you very much, and I'm glad you're out there. I really am. I love your show. I love the courage you have and your ability to chase down stories and find the truth of it. And also, I think what's really important is you get it out there in a funny way. I think that it helps people accept it more.
Well, I'm flattered, Joe. I really appreciate you saying that.
I appreciate you.
As always, I'm glad you have this show.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good to see you. We're going to have fun tonight.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Bye, everybody.